What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning. Back at Titans training camp at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. I am Robert Walsh. We got a surprise announcement from the Titans yesterday saying they would place Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserve retired list. Saahdiq at the age of 25, a former fourth-round pick for Washington in the 2020 draft. Charles played in 35 games with 18 starts over the past 4 seasons. He was named the left guard starter in Washington last season, but ended up only playing 11 games in 10 starts due to a calf injury that resulted in him being placed on injured reserve. An update on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. The Steelers and 49ers rekindled their trade talks, while the Patriots have fallen out of favor due to Aiyuk having no interest in playing for New England, despite their willingness to pay. And this morning, a little breaking news from Nick Underhill, Saints insider, that says Justin Simmons visiting the Saints. That is his first confirmed visit since becoming a free agent. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday morning, welcome to the middle of your week, live from an overcast Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. This is Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW, here on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, Kirby Allen, Kirby here on site with myself, Will Bowling. Reed Smith is our producer. Saahdiq Charles retires. What is next for the Titans on the offensive line? Rett Bryan at 7 o'clock. Titans camp observations throughout the morning when Brian Callahan addresses the media a little after 8 o'clock. What's going on? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, fine people.
Absolutely, man, on this hump day.
Yeah, it's really nice out here. It's kind of quiet.
Is it?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm, again, underwater.
I don't feel too bad today for some reason.
Today is somewhat all right to me as far as I feel like the humidity might be a little bit lower. Just a little. So Kirby's confirmed that. Just a smidge, okay.
We'll take it.
I'll take that, man, but it still has this haze over. But guess what?
I guess it is a hazy
I can give y'all all the updates and still smile because I don't have to practice today,
True.
all right?
Makes you feel better.
Here we go. We just watch it, evaluate it, and look.
Exactly.
By the way,
little sweat, that's all.
I'm peeping over Will's shoulder a little bit. I saw the Olympic events yesterday.
Oh, yeah, you texted about it.
Amazing, Willie. Goodness.
I really wish I knew what I was talking about when I told you that was going to be the race of the Olympics.
Had no idea, man.
Well, you should have had an idea. I told you on the show.
I don't know what I can believe from you anymore, Will, okay?
What have I ruined my good standing with telling you things that are going to happen?
I just wanted to trash your word. That's all it was. You're still good.
It ended up being
it lived
true.
up to it. No, it lived up to it yesterday, man. It was an awesome race in that 1500. And you also said there was a lot of spiciness around that race, too.
Yep.
And the guy that was the spiciest didn't even pole.
Jakob Ingebrigtsen took it out in a world record pace and got burned.
Ha!
Said after the race, too. He said, I was stupid. The three of those guys were smarter than I was.
At least he admitted it.
He has his own podcast. He's a big deal. But he'll probably still win the 5K.
Okay, will he still bounce back? You say he'll still get the 5K.
He already made the final in the 5K earlier this morning.
Okay,
so that was the 1500.
Yeah.
Meter.
It
Okay.
was a full sprint, by the way.
That's
My hamstrings
crazy.
were
Correct.
on fire watching that, man.
Right?
Correct.
Not that I got strong hamstrings or anything, but if I did have strong hamstrings and wanted to run, my calves and hamstrings, I think, would be on fire from that race.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said it's funny that we grew up running the mile, so we were ready for the extra distance. So Cole Hawker was more conditioned at the end. First time that two Americans have been on the podium in the men's 1500 in 112 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Between sprints and distance and throws, I mean, the United States is just an
That's
absolute
impressive.
wagon in track and field right now.
Has it always? Because I've
Yes.
followed the Olympics in track and field, so it's always kind
Yes.
of been
We've always dominated.
a hub for success.
The 1500 has not been, but we have now won 2 of the last 3 golds. in the 1500. Matthew
Let's go.
Sanford ran in Rio. In fact, Oregon Ducks have 2 of the last 3 golds in the Olympics between Cole Hawker and Matt Centrowitz. So.
The Ducks, let's go, man.
Big
But
time.
that's also one of the big selling points of what was the Big 12, too, right? Was their Olympic sports that they really pour
The
into.
Pac-12.
No, I don't think anyone
Right?
in my sports. No one really cares.
Really?
No, you're not really, because it's not like football where you're going to play your conference 8 times.
Okay.
You're just going to go to whatever meets like your team wants to go to. Like, I don't know. It doesn't, like, I cared about being in the SEC because I grew up going to SEC games.
Right.
I don't think it really moves the needle the same way for Olympic sports. It's just kind of,
I thought it did. By the way, shout out to the USA men's basketball team. Absolutely
victory.
obliterated Brazil, man. I was pleasantly surprised by that one because watching how they earlier on were just getting attack, and next thing you know, guys showed up. I think they ended up winning by 30-plus points last night.
Slay was close to hitting the nail on the head of how
I was going to ask.
much the differential was because he picked the U.S. by 28.
Sure.
They won by, quick math, stand by,
25.
35.
35.
They won by
Okay.
35.
Not
Yes.
bad. And KD, all-time Olympic points leader now?
Yeah. Man,
Impressive.
KD get a lot of hate, man. I must say, I am a KD fan. I know his Twitter fingers are always
He
high.
deserves a lot of the hate he gets.
He does, man. But when you throw that Slim Reaper to basketball,
Yeah.
there's not many that can touch him, man. And he's just that good at that height. Like I was pretty much X'd off the list at an early age when it came down to like basketball handles. Like I just couldn't dribble to cross people over, to do all those types of things, right? And KD just continues to just crush it and kill it the way he does, man. I'm a big KD fan. And yes, I still think he would have won the rings in Golden State. Okay, I'm that type of guy to say, you know what? He's the reason why they helped win it as easy as they did. So get off KD back.
All right, well, that was talking Olympics.
was.
Are your Steelers going to trade for Brandon Aiyuk?
I know it was the case. Right now, whenever Pittsburgh backed out quickly, quote unquote, I knew what Omar Khan was doing. He's going to play hardball with them because one, he can, and they have the money to deal. And also it was this side of it for me too. Pittsburgh has stacked a good amount of O-line and D-line talent too. They got a linebacker this past offseason, and Patrick Queen, and they also Baltimore. I don't know his college, but they also drafted Peyton Wilson out of Clemson. No, it's NC State.
No,
out of NC State.
I said Patrick Queen. Oklahoma.
Oh,
Patrick Queen? Oh, Patrick Queen.
Patrick Queen went to LSU.
I'm thinking of. I don't know who I'm thinking of.
Who's
Probably
that?
Kenneth Murray.
Kenneth Murray. Yeah. But Pittsburgh has loaded up on O-line talent, and they also have a trade asset too. The thing is, if they're doing business with the 49ers, they've already set themselves up by putting Dan Moore over to the right side of the offensive line, who's a natural left tackle. And then they go in this year draft, I think it was 20 or 21st overall, Troy Fautano out of Washington. And he can play the right side and has played it well. From the images that I saw yesterday and the people I've talked to, Troy Fautano ended up getting the 1 reps yesterday at right tackle. Here's the thing. Trent Williams is on the back end of his deal. Dan Moore plays left tackle. And although Pittsburgh fans aren't too thrilled or love Dan Moore because they went out and got Broderick Jones, Dan Moore is an NFL left tackle. So they at least have a trade asset that they can send out to San Francisco to me and also be able to afford to pay Brandon Aiyuk. And with the talent that they have and with Justin Fields being inside of the building, they don't have to pay him. They can give up their first-round pick for next year and still be okay to compete with a young guy. So I think Pittsburgh is still in the middle of a rebuild, if I can be completely honest with you, with what they have in front of them. But this is the way Omar Khan negotiates. And on top of that, this is the way Kevin Colbert always did in a sense too. I will say I still think the general manager of the Steelers, Omar Khan, is more aggressive than Kevin Colbert was. I see this situation as it's Pittsburgh and everybody else in the Brandon Aiyuk stakes. It comes down to giving up that first that they have to because of the franchise tag and sending a player, I think, because it was reported initially Amani, what was his name, the wide receiver from Cleveland, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was a part of the trade package from the Cleveland Browns, and they pulled that off the table too. So That's the only reason I think a guy like Dan Moore may get shipped out with a trade.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's
So,
my
and he-
all
and
of that is my opinion on the way I
He
see
has
this breaking
mutual consideration. Like, he wants
Dan
to go there,
Moore?
too.
Yeah,
no, Brandon Aiyuk.
Brandon
Like,
Aiyuk, yes. That's the conversation.
Right.
He wants to go to Pittsburgh.
Gotcha.
Also, it was Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
But I think it's Pittsburgh, Washington, and New England's out right now. So it's probably
he
a
said he didn't
two-team
wanna go
race
there.
with Pittsburgh leading it. And they
interesting.
need a receiver.
To the bidding war that's been created between two divisional rivals. Because now if you
True.
trade for Brandon Aiyuk, you are also making sure you don't play Brandon Aiyuk 2 times a year.
Yeah, no, seriously.
So smart by San Fran. I just feel like it's always been Pittsburgh, and they're trying to drive up the price perhaps a bit more by putting it out there that a divisional rival is also in the mix.
I can
because
see that.
a pick that might be a 4th on the back end of that deal could become a 3rd.
It could, very much
With
so.
the opportunity cost of him being a divisional rival. What do you think that cost is for Brandon Aiyuk?
For Brandon, his contract
If it's
cost?
Dan Moore and what? To
Dan
trade for
Moore
him?
and a first. I think San Francisco's in it for a first.
That's
If
about right.
not, you get
Okay.
2 twos for a guy like him,
about
considering
right.
you got to pay him. It's either 1 or 2 twos is the way I see it.
Well, here in Nashville, there is a need for an offensive lineman after your starting right guard. Saahdiq Charles retired yesterday. Speaking of former LSU Tigers, we'll react to that and take a look at what Ramon specifically likes about Dylan Radunz' game because put on your jersey, kid. You're the starting right guard again. We'll talk about that coming up. 615-737-1045 if you want to react to that. Live from training camp here on RKW.
If you're often feeling tired, lacking motivation, drive, gaining weight, or noticing a lack of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked, and it's just a simple test. And with their on-site lab, you'll get results back in about 25 minutes. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office. Their physicians specialize in treating low testosterone with customized treatment, or TRT, for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results, and most health insurance is accepted for this treatment. For established patients with stable T levels, they also offer a convenient physician-monitored self-inject treatment plan that ships directly to your home each month without the need to come in for weekly visits. And at Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, it is Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW here on 104.5 The Zone. Streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Twitch, please.
The Titans yesterday placed offensive lineman Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserved/retired list. Charles had missed a number of practices recently for what Brian Callahan has called personal reasons. He's informed the team he is walking away from the game. To say this was a surprising announcement yesterday would be an understatement. What was your initial reaction yesterday, guys?
Surprised. Like, honestly, when you guys text that, I was running some errands, so I didn't get a chance to look at it right away. And then I looked down, and I didn't see the Saahdiq Charles part. I saw, like, the whoa, wow, and then looked, it was Saahdiq, and looked it up, and sure enough, we had an email from Robbie, and the transaction had been made that he'd been moved to the retired list. And I'm going, is this the Saahdiq Charles we've been talking about that's been taking majority of the first reps at right guard? Yep, certainly so. Also just because of his age, guys, because he's 25, spent all 4 seasons, obviously, in his career in Washington, and then was brought here. And from all that we had heard, and Ramon, you can go deeper into maybe what you saw out of him, but he looked like he was, progressing well in that spot. And there wasn't maybe even a question that Dylan would beat him out at this point, at least. So I was shocked.
Yeah. My first reaction was, whoa. Same as everybody else, like, what? I'm asking all the right and wrong questions, because
Sure.
Nobody really knows what was going on. And I'll be honest with you, selfishly, I was like, okay, the news just keep on coming, baby. Let's go. And of course, I love this. I hate this for the Titans. I hate this for Saahdiq Charles in a sense, because it's just like, well, this type of stuff just keeps on coming, and as far as news breaking things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's my thing on Saahdiq Charles. Him being the first unofficial depth chart starter, I went there and it's just like, well, what's the why? Why? Nobody's probably going to ever get the real answer to that unless he speaks out about it or the team end up making a statement on what actually happened. But I've actually had this scenario happen similar around the same time that Saahdiq Charles retired. We had a guy that I played with that did the exact same thing. The differences was, this guy wasn't a starter that I played with in Pittsburgh. He was a guy that was going to be a reserve guy who was going to make the roster for the first time in his career. Like, at that point, he was a lock to be the backup center and be on the 53-man roster. And he came to us, and I'll never forget this scenario of one of my teammates retiring in camp or just quitting, whatever you want to call it. He left camp. He came to the coaches and let it be known that he just didn't want to do it anymore. And word was he wanted to become a serviceman. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to play football. We're like, bro, here's 6 figures in front of you.
Sure. You're
going to make this squad. And he was a young guy that had been on practice squad with us. He developed as a young pro. He checked every single box to make the team, and he chose to leave. And I'll never forget, we were at a point to where we knew he was going to make the team as players, right? Mm-hmm. And we were trying to convince him, like, bro, do not retire. You're going to be good. And I'll never forget Coach Tomlin told us, hey, y'all stop doing that. That man has made up his mind. You begging him to come back is not going to help our team. And that was one of those situations where he incorporated that we want volunteers, not hostages.
Sure.
And his situation was unique because I guess mentally, physically, and then just emotionally, he was checked out of football. You got to think, some guys start playing football at 5 years old, and they just get burned out with it. Or just, I always say this too, the mental gymnastics that you have to have, and I guess the mental toughness that you have to have more than anything is it's an everyday job. It's physical. It beats you down. It really makes you question a lot of things that you do as far as with your body and how you go about it. This one particular individual that I played with was just done with football. Saahdiq Charles' situation, being that he was a named starter so far,
right,
seems to me that he either had something going on back home within himself to where you just give it up like this. It's not like he was an undrafted guy. He's former 4th-round pick. He checks every single box of a guy that's looking to transcend into the next phase of his career. So that's why I'm shocked by it. But if I was a guessing man, it's probably something personal to him to where there's not much of a comeback to how he gets back or stay focused into the game.
Well, that's the thing, too, because, looking up all of the stats and everything, it's not like this guy started a ton of games in his career. He started, I think, 18 games in his entire career.
35, yeah.
Right. So you'd think, you're getting a prime opportunity in a brand new landing spot to be a starter and to kind of hit the reset on your career in a way with one of the best offensive line coaches in the National Football League. So again, I don't ever want to speculate with what's going on in people's lives because it sometimes can be something that can pull you away from, what you're doing out on the field with what's going on at home. But I wish him the best, but it's definitely a shocker because I thought he kind of had a spot here on this team to start at right guard.
Not just that, too. He also has support. Like Lloyd Cushenberry is one of his old teammates. That was one of the things, too, is, and TK McClendon, too. He has support on this team. So for a guy like him to back out of it, it has to be something that we just honestly probably can't understand. And a lot of people would suggest, well, you're living out your dreams. You just never know what kind of stuff folks are going through.
Sure.
I think when personal reasons are thrown out there, it's dangerous to speculate.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
A lot of the jokes you see, Tavondre Sweat's that good, and Bill Callahan, you gotta let that stuff go with somebody like this. And I think the good part of it is it happened in the beginning of August, not the beginning of September.
That's a good point.
That being said, Dylan Radunz is up. Daniel Brunskill is a backup center on this unofficial depth chart to begin this portion of training camp and begin preseason games. Ramon, let's start with the positives.
Yeah.
What do you like about Dylan Radunz, the guard, versus Dylan Radunz, the tackle?
Dylan Radunz, the guard, to me, has the body type to fulfill that role. Let's start there. He looks more of a guard than he is an NFL tackle. I like the way he's athletic enough to move left or right. I like the way he has transformed his body. What I want to see out of him is a guy that is mentally locked in, play in and play out, though. I think if you mention all those good attributes about Dylan Radunz, you got to also say that he has to be a guy that sticks on side, right? No penalties as far as pre-snap penalties
That's a
go.
big one.
Having the ability to be better at taking on the bull rush. And I would also suggest him this, too. Be lockstep with NPF moving forward in everything that you do.
Sure.
If those two are on the same page and Dylan Radunz isn't a thinking type of guy and is a reactionary type of dude, I'd much rather see that version of him than anything else because I feel like the way he is played, he's played on edge so much that he can't really settle in. Like, if he was to settle in at one job, I actually think he will be good at it.
Boom.
But the thing is, he's gone from left to right to tackle to guard to right back at guard again. And the fact that you have a body removed from the competition, Will, I want to be able to see him actually look like a pro over the consistency of the rest of this camp and in stadiums, too. The pre-snap issues that he has had must be removed from his resume moving forward. Because, again, as tight as it's gotten and the way you can say it's his job to lose now, I still do think Andrew Rupchick is a guy that we should keep our eye on. He's battled well. Last Saturday when I was out here, he probably had one of the better days of everybody that was playing interior offensive line for this squad and just in general. So that's what I like about his game so far as Dylan Radunz.
Can I go really quick into, you said he played so many different roles, especially in the 2023 season when he got healthy last year. Just to let you in your head look at this, 166 snaps at left guard last year, left tackle 85 snaps, right tackle 504 snaps, and then right guard 19. So he was all over the place.
Wow.
And that's hard. I'm sure you can attest to that, to put somebody in that position last year, especially with that type of a line that was just not cohesive. And be able to find a groove or a rhythm. And according to PFF, our friends over there, run blocking for him 78.7, pass blocking 59.7. So he had an overall grade last year of 67.2. But the biggest thing, and you mentioned it, was penalties last year for him. That has been a consistent problem with Radunz. And maybe if he's in one spot and training in that one spot like he has this whole training camp, maybe we start to see a little bit of evening out of that.
I hope so.
And they're mostly false start penalties. That's
for
the
sure.
problem.
Yeah.
He had 11 penalties last year.
Right.
But by the end of the season, I mean, he was pretty much good for a false start a week.
Yeah, you're not lying.
What do you not like about Dylan Radunz, the guard? Besides the penalties.
And it's because of his lack of reps there at guard. Him getting pushed back. I don't like that from him because I know he's strong enough. And the issue is with a guy like him is you somewhat see him on the ground more often than you want because whether it's his body shifting to what he's capable of doing from going from tackle to guard or guard to tackle. That, to me, is not many things I don't like about him. I have said I like what I think he can become as an interior guy. A lot of people have said he's a tackle. No, this guy should be a career guard.
You said it since the second he was drafted on Titans radio. You told Mike Keith. I remember listening on the drive to Knoxville. You said he is a guard, in my opinion.
And that, to me, Will, is where I want to see him be placed at. And what I don't like is the fact that he hasn't settled into that just yet. I think he has every capability of doing that job and being good at it. My thing is he has to understand what it feels like to consistently play inside. You're no longer dealing with dudes who are fast and can beat you around the edge. His ability to stop the bull rush, not turning when he gets bull rush, is something that I think we need to pay more attention to, and his one-on-ones and his team sets moving forward here, because now he has the ability to play one spot. If he is smart, well, I'll say this: taking advantage of this opportunity has been probably his biggest detriment to his career. I don't think he's fully seized everything that's come his way, and if you look at how he's been dealt the cards that he has, though, he's bounced back every single time. You can't get him to go away unless it's due to an injury. It ain't many things I don't like. He moves laterally well, left and right. He is a good athlete in space. It's a matter of consistently being one-on-one, being in lockstep with his tackles. To me, as I think has been his biggest issue. But they've also had musical chairs on the offensive line in general.
And I was just wondering, observations over the last 2 weeks or so at camp, is there anything that Saahdiq was doing that garnished him those first-round reps consistently compared to a Dylan Radunz, which I just don't think we even talked a lot about? I mean, we've spoken on him on this show, right? But I'm wondering, what was it that just made him far above, being that one or the first team rep guy in Saahdiq Charles compared to Dylan?
It would probably be something that Bill Callahan saw on tape. Okay. As much as we've seen, and it's not a ton as it pertains to my evaluation of him in practice, it's probably, hey, he may move better than him. And I think Saahdiq Charles has been a primary guard in his career, playing left and right. And also he's had just a little bit of history at playing guard more than Dylan Radunz has.
Why doesn't Daniel Brunskill get a closer look at guard again? He only gave up 2 sacks all last season. He started the whole year.
It's about personnel and having guys at depth. Right now, he's the most veteran guy to play backup center.
So is it fair to say that if Dylan Radunz does not seize this opportunity and take the bull by the horns, Brunskill is your break glass in case of emergency guy?
100%.
Unless you add somebody, right?
I think if Dylan Radunz struggles in preseason and doesn't fully take this opportunity, there's no reason to add someone when you've got Daniel Brunskill right there. Daniel Brunskill, coming off of last season, had one of his better seasons as a pro.
And he played hurt.
449 pass block snaps. He had 1 penalty. He had 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 19 hurries. He was good. He did not give up a sack from week 8 through week 17 last season, Daniel Brunskill. And
I'm telling you guys, he was hurt. Every game week, he was literally limping around that locker room, and he would get back out there and you just gave the numbers, do a pretty decent job. So if he's healthy, which he looks healthy this year at training camp, if he can consistently be that guy, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
No, I wouldn't either. I guess is the thing with Brunskill is this: if you commit yourself to him as an older guy, I think he's 30, close to 31, then you also are looking for a guy next year. It's ideal that you have a guy like Dylan Radunz be the dude moving forward. I do think there's planning for the future with these types of things. The way I see it is this: I much rather have Brunskill's practice center and have that down packed and be the game day 7, one of the game day 7 offensive linemen. That is the backup of the interior. From guard to center, he's your backup. I'd much rather it be Dylan Radunz. And I'm going to throw Andrew Rupp out there again, just because I think he's had a consistent camp, although he's been on the left side more than he has on the right. I think we're now looking at a backup battle between Rupchik and also Daniel Brunskill as it pertains to the interior guys. I am a little shocked that we're not seeing more out of the Texas Tech undrafted free agent, Cole Spencer.
Sure.
Considering that I think he was I'm pretty sure he was a priority free agent.
He was, yeah.
This offseason signing. Yeah, he did. I expected more out of him. But again, you get this type of talent and stack them up as far as developmental guys moving forward. Why Dylan Radunz, though, or why not Daniel Brunskill? I think his focus right now is becoming a better center than it is a guard at this point.
Well, one guy who is off the board who could have been a replacement for Saahdiq Charles is former Dolphins center Connor Williams. He signs in Seattle last night. And Drew Rosenhaus had essentially been saying on the radio all week that he would be in Seattle in the next 48 to 72 hours. That was one guy that a couple of Titans fans were talking about. I saw Mike Herndon tweeting about him yesterday, and that's someone Rand Carthon had familiarity with in San Francisco, who overlapped with him there. But to me, guys, if you're looking at priorities of who you may want to add in free agency, I think an edge rusher is still the priority over another offensive lineman. I think you just got to get someone who's already on your roster to really take this opportunity and run with it. And quite honestly, if it's not Dylan Radunz, then I think pretty quickly it just needs to be Daniel Brunskill again.
Yeah. And I can agree with that, too. As far as this O-line goes, I do see it be more in-house than it is searching for somebody in free agency. The edge rusher, to me, for sure, Will, is a thing that has to be looked at with Arden Key with a pending suspension.
So a couple people on the FNN Bank chat have said, is it a scheme fit, or does Brunskill not fit into this scheme?
He fits into this game.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from.
The uniqueness about Brunskill is his pass protection was pretty good last year, too.
Yep.
And you got to also think they're being taught a whole lot of new techniques as it pertains to Coach Bill Callahan. So technically, he's going to be fine.
You know what doesn't? You know what works in every scheme? Not getting a quarterback hit.
Yeah.
Which is one thing that Daniel Brunskill was pretty decent at last year.
And Dylan Radunz, by the way, gave up 5 sacks last year, too, just to add to those numbers.
Yeah.
Really quickly, on developing and maybe keeping it in-house and not going and grabbing somebody else and maybe putting the priority on the edge position, that's kind of Bill Callahan's stamp, right? Like, he has, in a way, and he talked to us about it when he joined our show last week, in a way, that's what he loves to do. It's kind of a project for him that he prides himself on, is developing these guys and getting them ready for the moment. So maybe this will be that next situation, whether it be Dylan Radunz or somebody else who steps up to the plate. I can see that being a situation that Callahan would embrace in terms of Bill.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He mentioned that on our show as far as the amount of tackles he had out in Cleveland last year that he had to move and adjust with. So I don't think this is a red flag as it pertains to the coaching staff and the talent inside of the room. There are bodies there. The competition has just now become more slim, and now the focus point is Dylan Radunz. I think he's starter capable. But he has to be at one spot moving forward. If he can't master this one this year, or if Brunskill does get into a spot to where he's outplaying them, then Dylan Radunz needs to reevaluate himself moving forward.
Yep.
Coming up live from Titans training camp here at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, Hard Knocks returned last night in the Windy City. An Episode 1 review of Hard Knocks, taking a look at the Chicago Bears. You'll be surprised to hear what I have to say about this review. That's coming up next.
So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted.
Wednesday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW rolls on live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Rett Bryan on deck in 15 minutes. 615-737-1045. Reacting to the Saahdiq Charles news. Taking your Titans calls this morning. Start with Mark in the Borough. Up first. What's up, Mark?
Great morning. So it's not really about Saahdiq Charles, but as far as Arden Key, with him being suspended, Ramon, I know, have you ever seen this? Like, as far as you get suspended for that amount of weeks, why would you still be taking reps with the ones instead of having Weaver? And have you guys seen Weaver take any snaps with the ones since he's been, ruled out for the, first 6 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. I've got the same
Good question.
Yes, I have seen it happen before. What happened is Arden to get a good bit of the reps with the ones, I think, right now to get him conditioning up to speed. And by the time they start with this game planning and whatnot, I think you'll also see Arden reps get taken down a little bit more, too. Here's the thing also is I think Arden is also going to appeal his suspension. So there's, I think, still a process there. As far as we know, too, the NFL actually hasn't come out and said anything about Arden's case. So it's that aspect of why Arden is still out there also. The NFL hasn't said it. Arden, from my understanding, will also appeal it. So at this point, it has to be somewhat business as usual until they get to a point of understanding what's actually going to happen. Yep. And, yes, Rashad Weaver has gotten reps. There's a rotation at DN. But right now, from what we've seen, Arden has gotten the lion's share because, again, he has to go through the appeal process. And he somewhat said that, unlike Danica, who said he will accept the suspension coming his way. But, again, Mark, I think at some point we'll start to see his reps taper off as we see guys that are actually going to be here get playing reps.
I do have a question for you, Ramon, though, and this is just comparing a different type of situation at a different position. But last year, when Nicholas Petit-Frere was suspended for gambling, he was able to practice, obviously, but did not take those first team reps. He was actually with the third team for all of training camp for the most part. Does it at all push somebody back in terms of going up against the ones if you're like a Rashad Weaver and not maybe getting those reps right now with the ones because he is going to possibly be the guy at least for the first 6 games?
The way I look at it, I think it's a difference in philosophy and positions more than anything. An offensive lineman has to get reps with the ones because he got to figure out how his left guard or his tight end's blocking scheme is going to be. Defensive guys, I've always somewhat told you, they work on their own, like they're their own business. However they win and make plays is primarily up to them. Like there is a method to their rush, but total, like when you look at what their job entails, it is figuring out how they can beat that person one-on-one. So whether Rashad Weaver is going against the ones or twos, his plan is pretty much still the same because he's LLC of Rashad Weaver for the most part. And mostly rush players are that way in general.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks last night, episode 1, Chicago Bears, was very good.
I'm surprised you watched it. I thought you were out on this.
I was surprised, too. I have been out on Hard Knocks since the Raiders season. I'd seen positive reviews on Twitter.
Okay.
Gave it a shot. I was glad that I did.
Nice.
It was very good.
What was the highlight?
Caleb Williams was likable.
Okay.
He was charismatic. They showed a lot of picks. They showed a lot of tight spirals. Jonathan Owens was a big part of it, Simone Biles' husband.
Oh, yeah.
And his process of going to Paris was kind of cool to see. You've got the token offensive lineman who's not going to make the roster but sang a really funny song and had a funny karaoke dance.
Love it.
Process. But I thought it was good. And Matt Eberflus is an interesting character. Nick Saban making an appearance. I did not know that Matt Eberflus played for Nick Saban at Toledo.
Did not know that. Wow, that's going back.
It is going back.
So that was interesting.
It wasn't cheesy is what you're saying.
No, I thought it was really good.
Nice.
I thought it was really good. They did a lot of football stuff, but they had the balance between like the Jonathan Owens, Simone Biles stuff. And the coolest part was at the very beginning, they had all this montage of like people building up Caleb Williams and people talking about how good Caleb Williams is going to be. And they had the Chicago Bulls public address announcer with the Michael Jordan starting lineup music, introduce Caleb Williams as the starting quarterback. As it's like pictures of like the lights turning on, him like putting on his helmet, like getting dressed for practice for the first time. It's the and now from Southern California, Caleb Williams, and it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
I know Bruce Buffer is huge on his intros, but the Chicago Bulls famous announcer of the
way better.
Yeah, so good.
I have Bruce Buffer fatigue.
You do?
I feel like every time there is something in Vegas, ESPN tries to make Bruce Buffer happen. Like every single time anything happens in Vegas, it's, oh, let's get ready to run. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's like a boxing match. Like, yeah, we get it. Like, it was cool the first time when the Vegas Stadium opened. I now have Bruce Buffer fatigue.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. They did that when Good Morning Football returned, and I was like,
no reason for Bruce Buffer to be opening Good Morning Football on a random July Monday at 4 a.m. local time. Like that is whatever.
No doubt. Well, I'll be looking at it. The Giant series was really good. Remember, I was telling you about that one. The Giant series was really good.
It was in depth.
Hopefully, they've gotten back to the way they were. With
I feel like Hard Knocks is required for us.
Yeah.
Like, it really is kind of like our summer reading.
Yeah.
It's literally the homework of being a radio host in an NFL market. Like, you've got to watch Hard Knocks, especially when, the Titans are playing the Bears week 1. Like, for that reason, I have more interest than I have in a couple of years.
And now, they, like last year, have the in-season one, which will feature your lovely division and your lovely division, Bert. So,
there you go.
Looking forward to it.
Rett Bryan joins us next, live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, Hour 2 of RKW after this.
It's Ramon Foster for Wesley Mortgage, man. Wesley Mortgage, it starts with their owner, Chuck McDowell, man. He's a local Nashville native, and you know this if you ever run into him. He cares about this community and is proud to serve it. Chuck, he reinvests in the people and the place that make Nashville such a wonderful place. While other mortgage companies are downsizing, Chuck McDowell and the Wesley Mortgage team are rapidly expanding in Nashville, keeping people working in the career that they love, and they will love to have you join their team. Chuck and his leadership team at Wesley Mortgage have a support system in place to help you succeed in the mortgage business, ensuring your loans close on time, making sure you get paid, and giving you back the time to build your business and bring back the fun to the mortgage profession. They have unique networking opportunities with the Tennessee Titans and the Music City Grand Prix, and they make closing deals and building relationships fun again. So if you're in the mortgage industry and you're tired of the grind, just tired of the pressure, and tired of micromanaging everything to make sure your clients get handled correctly, then you owe it to yourself to go to whywesley.com. Don't be surprised this week to see other jewelry store owners shopping at Genesis Diamonds. Yes, they'll be taking advantage of Genesis' most aggressive offer ever. All GIA diamond engagement rings marked down an extra 20% below Genesis' everyday price. That's right. The vault is open, and Genesis is selling the finest handcrafted diamond rings at rock-bottom prices now for a very limited time. The GIA, by the way, is the world standard in diamond grading, certifying accuracy and documenting quality, so you can buy with confidence. Every Genesis engagement ring is included in this event, from a half a carat up to 20 carat stones, all shapes, rounds, radiants, pear shapes, princess cuts, emerald cuts, cushion cuts, ovals, whatever, they have it. There has never been a better time to get an extreme value price on a GIA certified diamond, perfectly set in a gorgeous engagement ring. So hurry in for the best selection. It's Genesis Diamonds GIA Diamond Extravaganza, where you can save an extra 20% on these rare, precious diamond rings for a limited time. It is one per customer, exclusively at Genesis Diamonds. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
What's going on? 7 o'clock. Good morning. Back at Titans training camp at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. I am Robert Walsh. Surprise announcement from the Titans yesterday as they placed Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserved retired list at the age of 25. Former fourth-round pick of Washington in the 2020 NFL Draft. Charles played in 35 games with 18 starts over the past 4 seasons. He was named the starter at left guard in Washington last season, but ended up playing in 11 games with 10 starts due to a calf injury that resulted in him being placed on injured reserve. An update on the Brandon Aiyuk saga. The Steelers and 49ers rekindled their trade talks yesterday, and the Patriots fallen out of favor with Aiyuk. Despite having a contract in place, Aiyuk having no interest in playing in New England. And former Dolphins and Cowboys center Connor Williams agreed to a contract with the Seattle Seahawks. 1 year, $6 million, including $3 million guaranteed. Williams is recovering from a torn ACL, but as agent adds, he is making great progress. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wednesday morning, kicking off the show on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Hour 2 is off and running from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Robert Walsh is our producer. Kirby Allen, Kirby on site. Reed Smith back at our 104.5 The Zone studios, joined by the man who feeds us with Titans knowledge and delicious breakfast. He is Rett Bryan of Titans Radio at Rhett B Tennessee on Twitter. Rhett, good morning.
Good morning, y'all. It is an overcast morning, kind of muggy, but I'll take it because guess what? It's another day of padded practice. Here we go.
Love it.
Yes, sir.
And this sugar gets me going. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, just watch for the crash at the end, Kayla. But yeah,
now that is true.
Yes.
Luckily, nothing crazy to do after practice, so I'll just go crash.
That's right. So just to kind of jump in with you guys, I've heard you talk in the first hour. Reminder, Zone Podcast, wherever you get those, they're there.
Tell them.
Yes.
But, Saahdiq Charles just we get that email from Robbie, media relations director extraordinaire for the Titans, that he has been put on the reserve retired list. And, it hit me, I guess it was over the weekend in that Saturday practice.
Yeah.
When Brian Callahan just had the informal sit down under the porch back here and said, yeah, for personal reasons, he's not going to be here. And I was like, okay, whatever. You don't think anything about it. Some life happens, right? Yeah. And so then we get that email like, okay, there's more to it. This is more common than people realize. It's not an everyday thing. But we don't know what led him to do this. But we live in a day and age, you think about in the last 8 to 10 years, there's been a lot of young fellas who have walked away from the game. Sometimes it's those violent collisions. Sometimes it is personal issues, whatever. We don't know what that is, but it reminded me instantly of my very first training camp practice I ever covered for the then Tennessee Oilers radio network. It was over at the Hole at Hale Stadium at TSU in the summer of '97, and it was brutally hot. But after the first practice, Irv Eatman, longtime offensive lineman who had played 11 years at that point, he had started 23 of the last 32 games for the Oilers in Houston before they moved here. He just said he'd had enough. He retired immediately after practice. Wow. I remember him. I was like, hey, all of a sudden people kind of huddle up. Yeah, look, man, I just want to tell you all thanks for everything. And I'm like, I never even got to really meet this guy. He's an Audi 5000 out the door, right? It does happen. Now, obviously, he was a tenured vet and had played for 11 years. But sometimes this stuff happens. Yeah. And, Saahdiq Charles, for whatever reason, I think the puzzling thing for all of us is that he was the guy taking all the number one reps at the right guard spot and pretty much had that on lock unless something drastic had changed. Now, the only other thing I can think of, and obviously this is just pure speculation, but he had significant injury woes as it pertains to his calves. I don't know if he had a calf tighten up on him or something. He's like, forget this, I'm done, I can't, and that's total speculation. Who knows? But it is kind of surprising when you consider where he was on the unofficial first depth chart that was released the other day when they released the first preseason game release and all those things. But this is it. This is just kind of the revolving door that it is.
But Rhett, here is something that I've taken appreciation with you and how you cover, right? You do a lot of insider conversations with these guys, and one of the things you've always told me as a former player, and I can appreciate this, Rhett, is you always say this: I tell the stories of these players who are also human. You always bring back the human element to how you evaluate and have conversations with guys. You've seen so many different personalities, starting with Steve McNair all the way up to now we're talking about Saahdiq Charles in a sense, right? To where human-like decisions and mistakes and just life happen to these football players who are always perceived as Superman, and, hey, this is the ultimate dream to live to what you guys are doing. Guys sometimes make these decisions because they have the same issues as somebody that's going to their 9 to 5.
That's it. That's totally it. And that's the approach that I have tried to take for over 25 years now, is that they're more than just that nameplate on the back of that jersey. They are not immune to life's issues and problems. And but yeah, I love to tell the human interest story. I want to not take that armor away, that they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, but that they are more relatable to Titans fans, because you said it best. Life is always the top card over, I don't care what it is, and including professional football. Life is greater than that. When life happens, sometimes it spins you in a different direction.
And one more too, Rhett, before we go deeper into it. But you have been here in practices also, and you've been evaluating with Coach Mack as far as the O-line goes. What uniqueness did you see out of Saahdiq also for him to be number one in this group? Just the resilience, I guess, to somewhat compete is what got him out front?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, he is, as Coach Mack would say, thick in the lowers. He has tree trunks for legs. He's got a calf as big around as a fence post. But he was able, so because of that, he's got good anchor. He can set down in his he looks
reps like a guard.
He does.
Yes.
The other thing I think that helped him immensely, too, and I'm just guessing here, but Lloyd Cushenberry and him, they both played for the Bayou Bengals of LSU. So they know each other. They played alongside each other, even though they went different ways when, it came to their draft. And, yeah, he looked the part, and he didn't surrender, that in rotation. And certainly somebody else could have, and I heard you all talking about Dylan Radunz in this. And here's the thing about Dylan. It's just like the rest of this offensive line. I don't know how much better they're going to be in 2024, but I know that they're going to be way more technically sound than they have been before because of Bill Callahan.
Right.
And I think that is something that could not necessarily get overlooked, but is undervalued when we're talking about the potential of a Dylan Radunz and maybe being able to finally settle down into a position where he can try to make a serious go at it.
And, Rhett, I wanted to bring up, too, just, we talk about the retirement, and sometimes these types of things happen. Mm-hmm. These are also things that happen for guys who are now going to have a chance to have an opportunity. And whether that be Dylan Radunz or one of these undrafted guys, this is what also we love about the National Football League, is opportunities to take a hold of something like this and have a possibility to start or just be that second guy and that depth piece.
It's true. And we've just seen this in the last few days as Nicholas Petit-Frere has come off of the PUP, and now there's a different rotation and reps and competition at the right tackle spot. So to your point. But, yeah, for these other guys, maybe Dylan Radunz is in that locker room going, you know what? I'm turning up a notch now. Yeah. Not that he hadn't before, but, I mean, that's got to be a different landscape mentally, knowing that there's a path clear to you being there and somebody's got to unseat you.
I think, too, it's a little bit of redemption for him, considering 2 years ago he came into camp as the starting right tackle. In 2022 was the kind of incumbent, and Nicholas Petit-Frere, rookie, came in and took that job, so to speak. It's not often, Rhett, in this league that you get a legitimate second chance in a very similar situation now to where Dylan Radunz is the one who came into camp as the backup and finds himself on August the 7th as a starter.
Well, Dylan Radunz, first of all, is a solid dude, and he must be living right because he's got another opportunity. And that happens. You know what? That happens. And it happens because he is, for all I know, shown up and done what he's supposed to do in this. And that, availability, accountability, responsibility have got to be huge in this, just like it is in anybody's 9-to-5 job. It's just, this is a whole different magnitude of things as we're talking about the very top in professional football.
I was really quickly, I was just going to tweet this out. I remember doing the sideline report. I told them yesterday about that in the preseason game when it was still a battle between MPF and Dylan Radunz at right tackle. Like Will had mentioned, is it going to be crazy to think if it kind of plays out that way that they're possibly now starting next to each other after battling for one position at one point? Crazier
things have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Again, this thing is a moving deal. Your starters are usually your starters, and those usually cemented. The ones that lock in have them locked in. But there's all this stuff is up for debate and up for grabs.
Yep.
I think the only place where it's really not is probably Will Levis at the starting quarterback position.
Yeah.
And he knows he's got to lock that in and keep going in the right direction. But, yeah, that's what all this stuff is for. It's exciting just to kind of see, we have 2 days of padded practice, and then, here they'll dial in for the first preseason game Saturday night at Nissan Stadium. And we know we won't see Christian McCaffrey. Didn't think we probably would anyway. But I'm excited. I'm always excited for the undrafted rookies, all of those guys, to come out of that tunnel and get a taste of that. And, some of probably out there saying, Rhett, some of these guys came from major college programs. Yes, but this is different. This is the shield.
Sure.
This is it. And every one of those guys' wildest dreams are starting to come into view as they walk out that tunnel, and they hear the Titans fans cheer for them.
Yep.
That's something, I never experienced that. I don't know what that's like. I can only imagine.
It is very nice not to have Mr. Universe on the field Saturday night. No doubt about it. Mr. Universe. Coming up, Rett Bryan with us here at the table at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. What is the most interesting position battle as Titans training camp continues, and who needs a good preseason opener the most? That and more with Rhett next. Hey, what's going on? It's Will Bowling here from my friends at Lee Company. You hear me talk all the time about how Lee Company is all you need. 615-567-1000. That is the number you remember, whether it's your HVAC, your plumbing, whatever it is. Lee Company takes care of things for you quickly and efficiently. I love working with these guys, and if you got a ceiling light fixture that flickers, if you need an extra outlet or two, maybe you just have wall switches that don't seem to work, they're going to take care of all these electrical problems for you and these do-it-yourself projects safely and efficiently. Dealing with electricity requires the expertise of an experienced pro. Call the pros over at Lee Company. Their electrical team can solve any problem you have safely and efficiently, and right now you can enjoy $20 off an electrical service call for a limited time. Contact Lee Company today at 615-567-1000 or contact Lee Company online at leecompany.com for an appointment. That's 615-567-1000. Lee Company, all you need.
You ever wonder why so many pro athletes go and use stem cell therapy? Because it works. I'm Ron Slade, retired 14-year pro basketball player, and I needed to get this done. After I went through my entire career riddled with injuries, I needed therapy, so I went to Kellum Stem Cell Institute out in Franklin. Why? Because they're the stem cell specialists. They can be yours too. They're the stem cell specialists of the Tennessee Titans. You know why? Because it works.
Make an appointment today with Kellum Stem Cell Institute.
Live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park at Tennessee Titans training camp, it is Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW on 104.5 The Zone. Rett Bryan with us here at the table. Brian Callahan will meet with the media in just under an hour. We will not carry that live as there is no live feed of that presser. It is a more low-key, off-the-cuff, informal presser. That's the best way to put it.
Yep. Might have some news to address is what you're telling us. Is that what it is?
He did this Saturday morning last week before that padded practice.
Okay.
And it's just kind of low-key, whatever. I'm sure he passed along some info, but I think it was a chance for a lot of the reporters and the media corps have just asked some questions about different things. I don't know. I would be remiss if I did not say, and when you see him out here in a little while, tell him this. Dave McGinnis, Coach Mack, birthday today. Happy birthday, Coach Mack.
Happy birthday, Coach Mack.
To the man, the myth, the legend, my dear friend, broadcast partner, and the man who has taught me so much about the National Football League. It's his day.
National
All right,
holiday.
Coach. Frog.
Coach
Let's
Dave
go.
McGinnis.
Frog, that's right.
Exactly.
That's how you say happy birthday. I'm just going frog.
Frog.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Love it. Rhett, when practice starts today and throughout this week is preseason begins, of course, on Saturday night, which, of course, you'll be able to hear right here in the zone, courtesy of Titans Radio. What is the most interesting position battle you think right now at this point of Titans training camp?
I'm going to say at slot receiver. That's one of them for me. Because, I mean, you think about this. Okay, they bring in Tyler Boyd, who, has done a lot of that. And, that's, he can line up pretty much wherever, but he would be leading the clubhouse. But, all right, so Kearis Jackson comes back, the undrafted from Georgia last year. Mason Kinsey just hangs around. I mean, he is as tough as a pine knot, man.
Yep.
He just keeps coming out here. He keeps making plays. Yep. He won't go away. It's all the things you want in a football player, right?
Yep.
Jaquan Jackson, they drafted from Tulane. That's Tajay Spears' running mate there in college. And, Sam Schnee is in here, an undrafted from northern Iowa. I just think there's a lot of competition at that spot. And clearly, they're asking a lot of these guys to play special teams. It just depends. Oh, and let's not forget Kyle Phillips. I mean, good Lord.
Yep.
I mean, it's loaded back there. So I think this begins a very important process of seeing guys on film, putting reps in. I don't know how much, water they put in the bucket in terms of what it means with what they do Saturday night. I don't know if it means more, or do they have joint practices next week with the Seahawks, if that weighs a little. But they've been watching film of these guys and breaking it down every day of camp. And so those coaches have a pretty good idea about the pecking order, although things develop, during camp as we have seen before. But that, to me, is one that I'm intrigued with, just because there's a logjam of potential talent there and talent.
And we saw Mason Kinsey on the unofficial depth chart is, top of the go in terms of punt return. And I would assume that a lot of that is going to go into whoever that guy is will probably have to play significant times on special teams somewhere.
And Mason Kinsey has done that before and done it just fine. Listen, he likes the collisions. He likes the violence. He welcomes it.
Yeah.
Like I said, Mason Kinsey is not going away anytime soon, in my opinion. And so I think, honestly, the battle truly comes down to Kyle Phillips and Jaquan Jackson. Ooh. Because Jaquan Jackson has shown what he can do in glimpses out here, and I think that's where it may ultimately, because, Tyler Boyd's not going anywhere. And I don't think Mason Kinsey is either.
Right.
But, and again, it depends on how many receivers they keep. And then, obviously, if there's anything that develops as as a one-off here, a second answer, what we've been talking about most of this hour and what you've been talking about all show is right guard now that Saahdiq Charles has, basically retired. So I would start there. What do you guys say?
Running back is interesting for that third spot.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
We talked about it briefly. I'd like to get your opinion, but I think Hassan Haskins looks like at this point he's kind of winning that number 3 role. And I like I was telling the guys, a little bit bigger. When you look at the guy like Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, very similar.
He's the bigger of the group. No, you're right. And Hassan, of course, had a season wiped away for some things last year, and now he's out of the woods with that, and certainly putting forth the effort like I'm sure he had wanted to last season. But I'll say this. Don't count out Julius Chestnut now. Julius Chestnut looks good. And there's a guy that lost a good chunk of the season to some leg things going on, leg injury, and he's been here. He knows what to do, and he can play teams as well. So there's that. And then I'll say this. Jabari Small.
Ball.
Jabari Small just keeps kind of hanging around doing his thing, which is what he did at the University of Tennessee. I mean, Vols fans know he wasn't necessarily the recruit in this thing. He was brought in because of a teammate, right?
Yep.
And then what did he end up being? Tennessee's like 5th all-time leading rusher or something like that, over 2,000 yards.
There was a trio of him, Omari Thomas, and Kennedy Chandler in basketball that came from Briarcrest all at the same time. Kind of a package deal.
So,
That's crazy.
So, I mean, there's a guy who has been familiar with competition, and then, because Jabari Small, at the end of the day, is a dang good football player.
Yeah.
He really is. So I like that choice, Kayla. I think that's one that behind Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears is something to take note of.
I have a group that we got to figure out who's the next up. With Arden Key being out watching Rashad Weaver, Shane Ray, Jalen Harrell as those dudes right there. And there probably is somebody else because Khalid Duke has rushed well when given the opportunity also. But I want to see who emerges, Rhett, out of that group. Now, I know we're not talking about starter positions, but we got to have one of those three guys that we called out be guys that somewhat answer the call. Shane Ray, 6 years, Rhett. I mean, I know he went and played ball up north in the Canadian League, but, what does he look like on game day in the NFL again, right?
He was a terror at Missouri.
Yeah.
He was a top draft pick of the Broncos, and, he's had a long and winding road, and he knows that this may be his last chance to latch on.
Absolutely, man. So seeing who really emerges out of that group, and I know we had a caller earlier that asked about, Rashad Weaver and why is Arden getting the reps right now. Well, this weekend I think Arden may get a series or two, but the idea that Rashad Weaver has to step up, whether it's Jalen Harrell has to step up or whoever else, Shane Ray, I think that is one of the more important decisions that have to be made immediately when it comes down to game one of this year.
Let me ask you this, Kayla, because you follow Rashad Weaver like I do, and this is year 4 for him. Has anybody asked him about his weight? Is he down?
He is.
Because, I feel like he went heavier last year.
He did.
And now he went lighter to get that get-off around the edge.
That's exactly what he did. And we spoke to him, I think, at the end of OTAs even and mandatory mini camp. And last year he spoke a lot about how he was actually incorporating a lot more weight into his off-season program, which he actually said he'd never done a lot of before, even at Pittsburgh. And then that clearly did not give him the results he wanted last year. And he decided to slim down this year. He said he's done a lot more cardio, and he looks good. He looks like he's a little bit quicker.
He's streamlined.
Exactly. Yes. So I think, at least in this defense, what they're looking for, it might benefit him. So we have to see it, obviously, come game time. But, yes, he definitely slimmed down.
And the thing is with him, he's done it in games before.
He has.
I mean, he's no stranger to this stuff.
Nope.
And, I'd like to see that pilot light fully come on and go.
Yeah.
I mean, because he could be huge, especially with the Arden Key news.
Yep.
And, I had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, well, how's he out there still practicing? Well, listen, first of all, we don't know what that process is. Obviously, there hasn't been an official suspension that's come down, or if it has, maybe there's an appellate process that's going to happen. We don't know that. So, and those things obviously don't take place until the regular season anyway. So we've seen guys practice before it got to the real, live bullets kind of thing. And you mentioned Jalen Harrell from Michigan. I like that young man. I mean, listen. It took guys like him for Michigan to get the national championship. I guarantee you they were better for that in trying to grab that crown with a guy like him. And he's starting to get some pass rush reps that are noticeable.
Yeah, he is.
One over the weekend in particular.
Rhett, it's interesting at tight end, Chike Okonkwo and Josh Wiley on the same line at the top of the depth chart. Do you just feel like maybe they're trying to motivate Chike Okonkwo a little bit there? Right. I mean, the ball's been on the ground a couple of times, but Josh Wiley has also earned a closer look.
All right, so here's the thing. There are a handful of players that the Titans threw every resource they could get at because they see that potential in them in this offseason. And Josh Wiley is clearly one of those who have taken advantage of that. I believe John Ojukwu is one of the others.
Yeah.
And, because they're like, hey, we're invested in you, and we want to help you all that we know how to succeed, as they do with everybody in this building. But in the offseason in particular, as far as let me say this, and I'm going to channel my Coach Mack here in honor of his birthday. This unofficial depth chart to start out, they needed that. people make a whole lot out of this. They need that for the flip card for the game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gist of it.
Sure.
I don't know the thought process behind having because the same thing with Tajay and Tony Pollard. There's a split there. I think some of it tells you about maybe how this offense is going to be formed, but I don't put a ton of stock into that. But you're right that Chig is one of those that needs to have a good rest of this week, a good game Saturday night, and keep moving forward because he can make a difference. And putting it on the carpet, that's something he's got to stop doing, and he knows that.
Well, and we hear a lot about how close Josh Wiley and Will Levis are. Not to say that Chikakonko and Levis aren't good friends, but I think coming in the same year together and being in that same draft class, I think you're starting to see Josh Wiley come out of his shell quite a bit, and
For sure.
Not just between the whistles, but he and Kenneth Murray are having just a little saga of battles together. I mean,
fun.
those two are,
And let me
I
say
don't
it-
think are exchanging dinner reservations, but they're also making each other better through this process.
Let me tell you who else is in that fracas too, and iron sharpening iron here when we're talking cliches is Jack Gibbons, man.
I like it.
Gibbons and Murray, I like that combo, and
Mm-hmm.
between those and I heard some exchanges over the weekend
Right.
with Luke Stocker. It's like, hey, you need to tell your fellas to pipe down. But that has been some healthy competition there. It's the kind of stuff you like to see. And look,
It is.
that's the other part of this is we're at this point in a camp where they're ready to hit somebody else in a different
Absolutely.
uniform. And I'm so much looking forward to the first preseason game. But also, I'm really looking forward to those joint practices next week. I think that's
cannot
going to
wait.
be huge in this.
Yeah.
And not to go back to square one again, but that's also, Rhett, you bring up something that I was having a conversation with somebody with yesterday, and I said, this week right here is where you start to get the game planning. Training camp doesn't get easier, but you also have to game plan, which means you got to start taking away some of the, I ain't going to say some of the craziness of training camp because they're still developing. But when you start playing games, as a player, you start to think, okay, we're somewhat going downhill now. We've gotten past the breakdown part of camp, man.
Yeah, the installations, offense and defense have happened. Yes.
Which is why I was getting to the other point is having a guy like Saahdiq Charles say, I'm done, or designate a retirement for him, somewhat lets you know there was something bigger going on, either personally, professionally, or just psychologically that he couldn't get past. You know what I'm saying? So it's there. And also for Radunz, now is not the time to be readjusting. Now is the time to put your foot on the gas pedal and push it all the way down and just grab the starting position by the neck.
Let me say this. If you're going to readjust, Bertha and Olga, when they step back and take that bite and go back in again, once they get in the push, we've seen those O-line, D-line drills all off season. But yeah, it's certainly the burner has turned up another notch or two as we, get ever closer to the regular season. We'll turn around twice and it'll be here.
Sure.
I mean, it goes. I mean, think about how fast camp has gone.
I looked at the calendar. I said, I cannot believe
We're
we're
over
at
halfway
August
through it.
7th.
Yeah,
I mean, that
trust
is
me.
nuts.
I would have been looking at this schedule. You hear me?
Yeah, oh,
when
sure
is the
you would,
last day?
right?
When do we break? That's all I
Exactly.
would have been. When do we break? Okay,
And this is not two-a-days.
I know, right? But
Those dudes back when Coach Mack was coaching, man, two-a-days for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't see them in the offseason except for one mini camp in the
Right.
spring. And they had jobs in the offseason because there wasn't the money that there is now. But it's crazy to think that you have, and when I first started covering this stuff, it was two-a-days. I was like, with the weather we've had, I'm like, thank sweet Jesus that I haven't been out here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the heat of the day.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you really quick about Malik and Mason Rudolph. Malik Willis
Yeah.
and Mason Rudolph. We've heard Brian Callahan say clearly it's a competition for that number 2 spot. Do you feel like, in terms of the preseason, will they have an even amount of playing? How long do you expect Levis to be out there to maybe give these guys an opportunity to compete?
I think that's something that's left to be determined in this. Even Brian Callahan said in one of his last pressers that, the 2s and 3s are going to see more work, obviously, but not to take away from what they're already doing in a heavier load here. I don't think we're going to know until we see it. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. And Malik has put together some nice days, in this camp. And in his decision-making and release of the ball and his quarterback timing in general. I think that's an interesting thing to watch as well. I mean, our guy over here knows Mason Rudolph very well.
And pro.
And he's done it in big spots, and he knows what to do. So, I honestly think the onus is on Malik Willis in this. It's got to be because of where he is in this thing. Do we have time for a quick under the radar?
We absolutely
let's do it.
All right. Under the radar guy that I'm going to bring forward today is a guy that you should pay attention to come Saturday night if you're at Nissan Stadium, and that is Isaiah Eiton. He is an undrafted defensive lineman who had a crazy journey through college. He started at North Colorado in 2019, played in 12 games for the Bears, and he had a blocked field goal. He had a safety. I mean, and this is going to lead to what I'm telling you with his measurements. He's a big dude. He went to Hutchinson Community College.
Hutch.
And it was the number 2 defensive lineman and the number 10 overall JUCO prospect while he was there. And then in 2021, he committed to Ole Miss, and that's where he appeared in 23 games. He played in the Sugar Bowl against Baylor, had 17 tackles and 13 appearances, and then he went into transfer portal and went to Rutgers and had a really nice season in the Big Ten last year. But here's the thing about Isaiah Eiton that you will notice. First of all, he is a load. He's a big dude. He's 6'3", listed at 277. Wow. I think he's heavier than that. I think he's closer to 3 bills.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he is a long prospect, wing at 82 3/4. Yeah. And so that's why he's able to match hands and block a field goal or match hands with, and that's what you need in this is a guy. And of course, he's getting an education just like Tavondre Sweat is, but he's somebody I have noticed in this just because his sheer size in this, but he's going to get some reps and opportunity through this preseason. Isaiah Eiton, that is somebody you should pay attention to, and he is number 76 on defense.
Okay. Love it, right?
There we go. We will do exactly that this morning as Titans training camp gets started in just a little under an hour. Rett Bryan here has been our guest. Rett, thank you as always.
Thanks.
You're quite welcome.
Thanks for the Dunkin'.
You're welcome.
Coming up next, Austin Price yesterday dropped a little nugget that we did not get a chance to react to further about a positive injury update for Tennessee football, and you'll hear that next. Hey, it's Phil Bowling here from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center. Do you have hearing loss? Maybe someone in your family has hearing loss, but you're at the beach, you're at the pool, the lake, you get in the water, and all of a sudden you can't hear anything anymore. Well, at Brentwood Hearing Center, they have all the most advanced technology on the market, and that includes waterproof hearing aids. That's right. You can enjoy being around the water while wearing your hearing aids, enjoying all those sounds of friends and family with the Phonak Lumity Life, the world's only hearing aid that is completely waterproof. Give them a call today, 615-377-0420. You can wear them at the pool, in the ocean. You can go totally underwater without the fear of damaging your hearing aids. That's the kind of technology you get when you go see the folks at Brentwood Hearing Center, 615-377-0420 to learn more about the Lumity Life or visit them online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's 615-377-0420, Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life. Well, when you listen to RKW Tuesdays at 8:20 and Fridays at 7:20, you get insider knowledge courtesy of VolQuest and On 3. It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW live from Titans training camp here on 104.5 The Zone. That is what you got yesterday as we visited with Austin Price, who talked to us about the Tennessee running back room in hour 3 of yesterday's show. If you missed that interview, you can go to the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel and find it there, or you can check it out wherever you download podcasts in hour 3 of yesterday's show. We asked about the running backs room, and Austin Price gave us a positive injury update on running back Cam Seldon.
Yeah, Cam continues to progress. I think he'll be cleared to go by the start of the season based off people I'm talking to. I'm not sure if he plays against Chattanooga. I think he'll be available for NC State. Again, as of right now, barring any setbacks, it certainly feels like he's ahead of schedule and will be good to go. But at some point, they're going to need to get, the rust knocked off on him. As for the other guys, Peyton Lewis has really impressed, through the first, week and a half of fall camp. Talked to a couple of players, and, they were singing his praises and kind of, what he brings to the table, how he runs, his ability to cut. And so he reminds me a lot, his ability to kind of one step cut and go of Arian Foster, a guy you played with, Ramon. Not as tall as Arian, but at the same time, like, he is a bigger back. I mean, is he Cam Seldon big? No, but he's not small either. I mean, he's deceptive with his size. So Deshaun Bishop continues to come along. Obviously, Dylan Sampson is the lead back here, and they got to keep him healthy through fall camp. But to this point, without any major scrimmages being played, they're happy with where they are at the running back position.
I think that is a good update from Austin Price. Cam Seldon getting healthy would be big, but Peyton Lewis was the number 10 running back in the country coming out of high school. We talk a lot about Tennessee recruiting North Carolina well. Virginia, also very important recruiting ground where Lewis came from, and a guy that Tennessee's going to have to rely on in the first few weeks.
And no doubt, too. And I love the lead up to the season, too, because these type of stories somewhat handle themselves at the end of the day. Like Cam Seldon, I felt like we knew was going to have the opportunity to get healthy, to come back and play. But it's always one of those we want it now type of situations, right? And the process of getting healthy, especially for a guy that gets hit on every single play, like running back of Cam Seldon right now, it's crucial for him to get acclimated, but it's also crucial for him to get as healthy as he possibly can be in this situation right here, considering what his role could be. I honestly thought he should have been the number 2 to push, guys for a lot of playing time. We've seen spurts of what his athletic ability allows him to do on the playing field. So I'm excited to see him out there when he does get back. But Peyton Lewis being available to me is probably one of the bigger storylines as it pertains to getting what we've always spoken about as of late, getting this young talent that they're recruiting on the field so that the next class after them can say, hey, if you do what you're supposed to do, you will play as a young guy. So I like this for both of those young men so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think there is legitimate depth on offense at every skill position for Tennessee right now. And running back is still the thinnest spot. But you've got a young guy who is the number 10 running back in the country who you're sitting there being like, oh, is he going to have to play? Yeah. Because of, the depth that you've created. But Cam Seldon, to me, is still such an interesting prospect. And the fact that he was sold on being Tennessee's Deebo Samuel, which is a really interesting role within a no-huddle offense to where you could start the drive at wide receiver and finish it at running back and then go back to wide receiver, and you got the same linebacker having to cover you in space the entire time. I think we will see that be a big Swiss Army knife and an X factor for Tennessee throughout the season, and it is significant, I think, for him to be available early. I just hope we're not playing the game we played with Cooper Mays last year, where it's like, he'll be ready for the start of the season, I think he'll be healthy, and it's not a slight at Austin. I think Austin's intel is 100% accurate. Yeah. I think there are setbacks that often happen with these guys, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a disrespect to Austin at all. I just hope there are no setbacks between now and then, because those are easy to come by in college football. Because
as it stands right now, there's no injury report that's given out. And you got to go off of what the coaches tell you.
I think they need Cam Seldon for Oklahoma. They need Cam Seldon for those early big games. For NC State even. If you can get NC State, Cam Seldon ready, that's significant for Tennessee's offense. I really think he is an X factor under-the-radar guy that could make a big impact for Tennessee this year?
To be a big guy at his size.
He's a power back that plays wide receiver.
But his breakaway speed
is,
to your point, what you're looking for. Another Jalen Wright. You know what I'm saying? A bigger
I don't think he's Jalen Wright.
But as far as the breakaway speed and space, open space, it's where you don't? What do you see?
No, I think he is his own thing. I don't think Tennessee's had a Cam Selden.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh, wow. You don't think Jalen was that? What was Jalen to you?
Well, Jalen was not 6'2", 220 pounds.
Okay, I'm just speaking about as far as like comparables to needing a weapon in open space.
Sure,
that's where he lives to me.
I think Peyton Lewis is more the Jalen Wright mold.
Really?
I think Cam Selden is the kind of back that Tennessee has not had.
Love that. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him being that bruiser. As long as that shoulder is healthy, I will live that life as far as saying put the ball in his hand.
615-737-1045 is our number. The big news of the morning, Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserve retired list. What does it mean for the other members of the Titans offensive line? Brian Callahan is set to address the media at 8:10. We will have those comments for you after they happen as the halftime of the show already hits here on 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, letting you know summer is over and it's time to get ready for school to start. Even today, yes. Even though the kids are headed back to school, you can leave the homework to Hiller. This month, they have all kind of back-to-school savings, like a $99 drain cleaning special for you, or $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems. Also, you can get $500 off new tankless water heaters. So many deals going on right now. $1,000 off also for whole home generators, which can be clutch in this area with the storms that may come in. You don't want to be without power. And Hiller right now has a crazy endorsement for you. $1,000 off those right now. For more details and more deals, go to happyhiller.com today.
What's going on? Just a hair before 8 o'clock. Good morning. Back at Titans training camp at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. I am Robert Walsh. Surprise announcement from the Titans yesterday as they placed Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserve retired list at the age of 25. A fourth-round pick of Washington in the 2022 NFL Draft. Charles played in 35 games with 18 starts over the past 4 seasons. He was named the starter at left guard last season, but ended up only playing in 11 games with 10 starts due to a calf injury that resulted to him being placed on injured reserve. An update on the Brandon Aiyuk saga as the Steelers and 49ers rekindle their trade talks while the Patriots have fallen out of favor despite having a contract in place and compensation in place with the 49ers. Aiyuk had no interest in playing for New England despite their willingness to pay. Former Dolphins and Cowboys center Connor Williams reached an agreement on a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million with $3 million guaranteed with the Seattle Seahawks. Williams is recovering from a torn ACL, but his agent adds he is making great progress. And a little bit of free agent visitation news this morning as former Broncos All-Pro safety Justin Simmons visiting the Saints. That is his first free agent trip as a free agent. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5. The Zone.
Wednesday morning, halftime of the show and the start of hour number 3 on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Robert Walsh, and Kirby Allen Kirby. Make us sound pretty in person. Reed Smith back in our 104.5 The Zone studios, practicing on the practice field in 30 minutes. That is the field we're looking at right here at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Brian Callahan will talk to the media coming up in 10 minutes. We will bring you as much as we can from what he has to say from a non-streamed chat. So, again, if you tune in regularly hearing live pressers, we don't have that for you.
Yeah.
And no one will have that.
It's something new this year they're doing to try to get a little bit more time with him since he is the play caller. So he has meetings and some of these, after practice things where he can't be out here. So we're trying to do kind of an informal thing.
Right.
So we will keep you updated on whatever we get, and you may not hear audio immediately. Maybe you will. Who's to say? We'll find out soon.
We'll surprise you.
Buck Rising shaking his head already. We've been given 2 different answers from 2 different people. So, who's to say?
I know. I'll just go over there and effort and see what we get out of it.
See what comes from it. Yeah,
Yes.
No doubt.
Well, the Titans yesterday, the big news, of course, placing offensive lineman Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserve/retired list. Missed a number of practices over the past couple of days for what Coach Brian Callahan has called personal reasons. Informed the team he is walking away from the game. Interested to see what Dylan Radunz looks like the first day after Saahdiq Charles' exit, and equally interested to see the breakdown at that position, right? Do you feel like Daniel Brunskill gets more of a look at guard today versus backup center where he's been for most of the time during camp?
I think there's a little bit of shifting goes on. I do think Brunskill gets the opportunity. You got to remember, too, they signed Corey Levin last week, if I'm not mistaken, too, as far as his timeline goes. It wouldn't shock me seeing Cole Spencer move over and at least have some type of competition with Dylan Radunz, too, because he played guard and center at Texas Tech and at Austin P. Western Kentucky, which I think is Western Kentucky and Texas Tech. So there's flexibility at that position. It's a matter of where are they as far as their development and can they handle those reps too, because what you don't want is a very unproductive practice because guys don't understand the magnitude of what's going on in front of them. So I'm somewhat optimistic that, look, the competition will still be there. It's a matter of who's going to grab this position by the neck and run with it, honestly. I've been in that situation before, too, somewhat similar. You can't fumble this one, Dylan, is what I would tell him.
No.
Like, nobody's really in his way. now moving forward, and it comes down to how professional he will be as far as taking these reps early now. Can he get past the pre-snap issues that he's had, and can he now mentally set himself to be in a position to shift his body to understand what right guard is?
Right.
And not just that, dealing with NPF who's coming back. If I was either one of those guys, I'd be up front right now just, what do you like? What don't you like? What can I do to help you? Like, they got to serve as each other because both are somewhat behind the 8 ball on how they have gone about the earlier parts of their careers.
Yeah, and look, Dylan Radunz has been working at this spot since we have been able to see him out on the field, starting in OTAs, right? So it's not like he's now switching over to a different position. Like, he has been here in Callahan's room, Bill Callahan's room, from the start. So he's been able to get used to that and work at those types of techniques in that spot. So now you're exactly right. The opportunity is here now to be a potential starter at that spot. And what I've noticed with Bill Callahan too, he is kind of set in his ways with his plan with this offensive line, as you see. And that's why I'm curious is if they do bring Brunskill over there to work with him, or if they just keep him at center as the backup, because he has the experience. He's been a rover on that line before. You know he can do it. And maybe that's the thing. They know he can play that spot, so maybe they keep continuing to give him reps at the center spot where he's not as comfortable.
It's going to be interesting. I think the Titans' offensive line is worse today than it was yesterday. And I think overall the good vibes that you felt coming into camp are largely not gone, but there's been a lot of negative news around this team over the last 3 weeks, and that was not necessarily the case when we talked at the beginning of camp with Rand Carthon about the elements of, you know, there's nobody holding out, right? There was nobody with a major injury at the beginning of camp. You had good feelings around the energy of practice and things like that, but Chidobe Awuzie is hurt, DeAndre Hopkins is hurt, and you lose Saahdiq Charles. It's in addition to a suspension for Arden Key. I mean, I just feel like some of that positive energy is not gone, but just not at the same level it was at the start of camp.
Definitely. And reality sets in. The beautiful part of it is this, though, too, Will, is you still have time. And I know that the sand is moving through the hourglass as far as the preparation to get this team in the best spot it can possibly be for opening weekend, which is on the road in Chicago. And as I said before, that fan base will be chomping at the bit to be a terror to the Tennessee Titans going up at Soldier Field, right? I'm with you on that, but here's also the way I feel about it. There's enough time that I personally think D-Hop will be a guy that'll be available week 1. I can't see a guy as professional as he is that doesn't have like a crazy knee injury, right? The way it's been described. I think he's a professional enough to be there and available. I also look at the other injuries that they've had so far and saying there's opportunity for guys to be better at those spots. Radunz is a guy right now that if he takes it, he's good, right? And we've seen him play and has played well in games. It's a matter of his consistency of understanding that he's a guard. Now, when it comes to Arden, that is a super unique situation. There was a lot of hope that he would be a guy that became a first, a second, a third down type of guy, and we're not going to see that for the latter part of the season until we figure out what he and the league have in store for himself. I myself am with you. Like, the hits, they seem to keep coming right now. Well, they do, but camp is long, and we still are, just under a month before the season kicks off. I think we're still at a month. September 10th, I think, is opening weekend. So there's time is what I would still say about this one. My level of concern is probably a 6, just because it's the unknowns of what Radunz will do. I think that's super crucial. What NPF also will do. And again, as much as Denard Wilson can set this defense up for success, losing a depth piece or starter like Arden Key right now can be problematic for guys that we hadn't seen turn over that production value that we thought they would have. And that guy, again, we continue to bring him up, but it's Rashad Weaver. What has it looked like for a dude like him in the last 12 months?
Are you more concerned about the pass rush or the offensive line at this point?
The pass rush.
Really?
A little bit, yes.
Interesting.
Just on the basis of we spoke of Rashad Weaver losing weight, okay, right? And that's for a specific reason, I think, to get after the quarterback. How does he hold up against the run?
Well, too, Ramon, we talk about weight when a guy's production hasn't been there.
Right. Right.
Like that is it's not a fallback. Like, it's a legitimate conversation, but odds are if we're talking about a player's weight, they didn't have the season they wanted to last year. So we're going to try low. Because that's not always the right decision for them to make. Like, guys experiment and tinker with these things based on what the team or a personal trainer or different things tell you. Like, to me, it's not a red flag. It's a yellow flag if we're spending more than a day talking about a guy's weight. I'm not getting on to you.
Right.
I just think in general, like, as much as we talk about Rashad Weaver's weight, it's a yellow flag for me that just the guy has not been what we thought he would be.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Absolutely.
It's the fact that has if that's your answer. Like, I've known guys to be heavy and get a lot of production. I've known guys to be light and still have production. Like, what kind of player are you then is what I'm asking at that position, which is why it's more problematic to me than the offensive line. My thing is this. There's enough time for Dylan Radunz and NPF to get on the same page. We got a month. Plus, there's also, after the last preseason game, you got that gap week, right, where it's all game planning to get to the point to where the ball is about to get kicked off. Yeah. So there's time for that. My issue is what I said earlier as far as Arden Key still practicing and Dylan Radunz being the guy that has to have a toolbox of tricks, a toolbox of plans to attack an offense. We haven't consistently seen that over his first 3 years as a pro. And that's why it's problematic. And on top of that, a guy that hasn't played in the NFL in 6 years and Shane Ray. That's why it's a bigger concern to me than the O-line.
I agree. I think anything you get from Shane Ray is gravy, is extra at this point. I don't think that's a guy you need to be relying on to get 4 to 5 sacks at the edge rusher position. I also don't really care what Rashad Weaver does in preseason games. I'm going to be honest with you, because Rashad Weaver has been a preseason hero for a couple of years where he's had really good production in a lot of those preseason games, and for whatever reason, for injuries and what have you, it hasn't totally translated. So I don't think we can overreact to that. I think I'm more worried about the offensive line because T'Vondre Sweat looks more week one ready now than I expected him to.
Yeah.
And I think that now losing a starter at right guard will compound the lack of experience you have at right tackle. Whereas at edge rusher, I think that weakness is a bit more covered up by Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat, who could end up being, obviously Simmons might be the best player in the entire team, and Sweat could end up being one of the most impactful players on this roster on defense.
That's fair. I'll give you that one.
I would be more concerned about the Saahdiq Charles retirement if I knew he was going to be any good. Because I don't know what Saahdiq Charles was going to look like this year. He struggled last season at times in Washington. The thing that got us excited about him was the fact that Bill Callahan picked him and wanted him, but we have no idea if the guy was going to be any good. And we went into the season, I think, probably assuming that Dylan Radunz was still going to have to play some right guard at some point.
Yeah.
And that Daniel Brunskill was going to have to be available in a pinch to come in, and you had these options. So I think that's why I'm not totally sounding the alarm bells at this point on Charles, because I don't even know if he would have kept that job beyond a couple weeks.
So here's my thing on him, too. He was a guy in Washington that bounced from left to right and had played at other places, too. The conversation I had with folks that was close to it said his issue was a technical issue, to where understanding how to be in a good place. Like, he plays and has the grit and had the attitude that you wanted, but his level of teaching. If we can say that, and I'll always put that on the coaches to say, hey, you as a coach are supposed to develop and be better also. And that, to me, is where it becomes very problematic. Is that Wes?
Yes, it is.
Wesley!
Some former Titan walking around here, Wesley Woodyard, just hanging out.
Yeah, just
friend of the program.
Just walk by. Like,
he was zoned in.
And still athletic.
This man was totally zoned. We're going to have to catch up with this man at some point.
How you living, man?
Wesley Woodyard, you're live on the show. What's up? What's going on? So we will continue talking about that, the Saahdiq Charles stuff, and we'll see what we can bring you from Brian Callahan, who is about to talk to the media. We might have to start talking Tennessee football again. Coming up live on 104.5 The Zone.
Pain from arthritis is just awful. Bone on bone, constant pain. It robs you of so much and of what the things that you love to do because you're maybe dealing with that. But there is an effective way to deal with that pain. And I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. It is QC Kinetics. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. There are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. And the place to go is QC Kinetics. They are using cutting edge treatments that actually accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalize your joints so that you can move again. If you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or maybe an injury, you need to know steroids and surgery and pain pills are no longer your only option. Learn how QC Kinetics uses their advanced regenerative medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. The future of medicine is certainly here, and all you got to do is give them a call for a free consultation. That's right, a free consultation. They'll get you right on track. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 in Nashville, Clarksville, and Murfreesboro.
Rolling right along here on hour 3 of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Outside at Titans training camp, practice getting started in just about 10 minutes. Players are making their way onto the field as we speak. Kayla's over with Brian Callahan as he meets with the media. Ramon Foster, Will Bowling with you. Some updates from the coach on Saahdiq Charles. Brian Callahan saying he was taken off guard by the Saahdiq Charles retirement, said it was a decision he made that football was not for him anymore.
Really?
And that was the explanation.
I was talking, we introduced somewhat Wesley Woodyard on the show a second ago, former Titan himself, and said it's been a couple of guys that have somewhat retired or called themselves out of training camp this year, man. It's a fascinating situation to be in, to just say football isn't for you anymore. And at that point as a coach, there is no talking a player back into coming back out. It's no real presenting him the opportunity to, hey, look, this is what's in front of you. No, you just let that person go by their merry way and wish him well, man. So whatever it is that made him come to that decision, I hope he finds his answer at the end of it.
Quandre Diggs is here. We're number 26. Brian Callahan telling the media he will be on somewhat of a pitch count until he gets back into full shape. Another injury update, a torn pec for Garrett Wallow, linebacker who will be out for the season. And a big opportunity then for the guys that are left at that position, specifically Chance Campbell and Cedric Gray. Cedric Gray just got a little bit closer.
Yes, he
to
did.
The top of the depth chart, or the middle of the depth chart, I even should say, at inside linebacker.
Yes, no doubt about it. And here's the thing, so some folks have been asking the questions about him. Also, as far as what is his career going to look like so far? What is he going to be as a linebacker? We had so many conversations about the green dot, right? And what's his role going to be? Can he pick up the defense? No, it's simply get him on the field, probably let him cut his teeth being a special teamer, let him grow as a young player, because, again, it can be too much too soon. I think as of late, we've seen a bunch of drafted guys come here and having the need to play because, again, talent was either not there or injury-struck guys. I love the appropriate way of developing dudes, man, because you get more out of them. Like, you got to think these dudes are still young at mind, very immature as far as being pros, and understanding for a guy like Cedric Gray, right? There is a Lloyd Cushenberry across the way that can just grab you and hem you up, and understanding how to attack that is where you grow as the linebacker.
Again, if you missed it, this conversation the media is having with Brian Callahan right now is not being live streamed. It is not a video press conference. That is why you are not hearing these comments live. That is why we are telling them to you. Kayla's over there and will give us a report of what she heard. And we might have audio of that. We may not. We don't know. So we're going to figure that out in just a few minutes. But until then, we're just reading what reporters over there are saying on social media. One note, Teron Davenport says via Brian Callahan that Dylan Radunz and Saahdiq Charles have had an even split of right guard reps at this point. I think that's interesting that he makes a point that no starter had been solidified up until this point. Ramon, I think we all assumed it would be Saahdiq Charles considering, A, they brought him in.
Yeah.
You often don't bring a guy in the part of free agency that they did to be a backup. But also he had been taking most of the reps with the ones that we had seen. Again, we are not out here every day.
Right.
We also are not privy to the information of what happens when practice is completely closed to the media. But Teron Davenport again writing that Daniel Brunskill is also in that conversation. And Brian Callahan brought him up immediately to say we have the benefit that Brunskill has played a lot of right guard as well.
It is, and I thought last year he finished off the season really well at that position too, man, given, as Kayla said earlier, the amount of injuries and aches and pains that it looked like he had last year, just to get healthy and put him back out there. Now, you mentioned something too, Will, a second ago, as far as our availability out here. The days we're not here, they are still practicing.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the time, coaches like to put you on a wild goose chase, right? Why not present to you who's going one as far as Saahdiq Charles versus Dylan Radunz to the media? And while the entire time, like he said, well, they've been splitting reps somewhat evenly as this competition has matured. Again, coaches know how to manipulate the media at times with optics, right? More than anything, to where they'll let you see and report and say what you want to while they go behind those doors and have different and separate meetings. So I've been pleased with watching Dylan Radunz this camp. Again, having him as one spot has been one of his biggest question marks over his career so far.
Sure. Other notes from Brian Callahan talking to the media right now. He says that they are still waiting from the final call for the league about Arden Key. He says that is a pending suspension at this point. That confirms what you told us last week, that there is an appeals process that is happening there. There is a process that's going to have to take place at the very least to see if that suspension can be reduced. Because you've got the option potentially to take that down to 4 games from 6, or you could just get it totally taken away. But it is still a pending suspension at this point. That's the language used by Brian Callahan meeting with the media, and says they will adjust the first team reps if and when they need to do that. That's interesting.
And here's the other thing, too, as it pertains to Arden Key and the report being out there. I have a feeling, because the league hasn't said anything public about this, I have a feeling because the team hasn't officially announced Arden Key being out, right? Arden Key was getting ahead of this report by probably talking to his coaches, talking to executives here with the Tennessee Titans, and somewhat let them know, honestly, y'all, I messed up, or whatever the case may have been with the conversation with his position coach, and I'm sure the head coach about his suspension. So the reason I think this got out is because Arden wanted to get out in front of it, which is why the league hasn't said anything and why he continues to get first-team reps.
Brian Callahan talking about the passing game, says deep ball relationship between Will Levis and Calvin Ridley has not been great so far. I think that's interesting critique. He's not wrong.
Didn't we bring that up, though, too?
We have.
We have talked about that.
We've talked about that being an area, really, I think you could argue, Ramon, the area of the passing game that has not been crisp.
Yes.
As we have seen it. A lot of the deep balls that we have seen these quarterbacks connect on have been on plays that likely would have been sacks in live game settings. And if you're admitting that as an offensive lineman, then that's 100% true.
It is, man. But, again, that's also why if there's a sack being had by the defense, coaches will always tell you, stay away from the quarterback to allow them to finish the play down the field. Now, to your same point, Will, the timing of releasing the ball. One thing we know about Will Levis is what? That if he puts it in his holster, he's a quick draw McGraw out here, right? He's got a cannon.
Quick draw McGraw?
I mean, he's
That's
got
a new one.
He's got a cannon is what I'm saying. We know that, right? The touch on him being able to get that ball, let his wide receivers get open and drop it into the breadbasket for them has not been consistent. It's something I know we have talked about is, there's been some nice passes to NWI across the middle, but there have been numerous times we have seen Calvin Ridley, and I would tell you, top the DB.
Yeah, right.
Beat him at the line of scrimmage, get on top of him, and he's open. He's NFL open. And the ball gets overthrown or back shoulder when it doesn't need to.
And back shoulder, I think that's the term, right?
Yeah.
Is that a lot of Will Levis's misses have been out of bounds. I would rather you miss out of bounds to the back shoulder than inside to where a safety has a chance to intercept it.
Yes.
So right there, I think that's one note that maybe is a positive. Good quarterbacks in this league, their misses aren't caught by the other team.
Thank you.
That's the biggest difference between a good quarterback and an average one in this league. An average quarterback misses and it's intercepted, it's tipped to the line, the ball comes out late. I don't think that's as much been the issue, but a lot of those deep passes, we've seen it down the sideline, Calvin Ridley trying to kind of post up like a power forward and swivel those hips and box out the DB, turning with his back to the middle of the field, kind of his chest towards the sideline, and that ball has just been too high and too far out of bounds so far.
That has been the one thing, one of the few things that's been consistent. Again, what do they say? What good is having that cannon if you can't really use it properly? That's where Levis is right now, and that's the maturity aspect of having, in my opinion, having DeAndre Hopkins out. It's one of those things I say I think it's most crucial for Will Levis to get on the same page with a Calvin. Really, I think he understands what D-Hop needs. D-Hop stuff has been mostly deep ends or comebacks or drag routes to where Will Levis understands where he's going to be at. The specialty that Calvin Ridley has is getting downfield. It is making those splash plays that this offense has been needing in the passing game, Will, more than it has in the running game. We're not worried about what the running game can be, right? Being able to be a field flipper is what this offense needs, and is what I think Will Levis, as a quarterback in this league in year 2, we got to see a little bit more touch instead of holding on to it in practice and sack. And the defense has been right. They've gotten there.
Kayla joining us back here at the table as Brian Callahan wraps up his presser. We have basically read all of the tweets about the updates. What stuck out?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love how he just addresses the injury stuff from the start. Because, again, that doesn't leave us in question of what's going on or why we're not seeing people out there. So, clearly he was asked about Saahdiq Charles. And from what we've heard, and you guys saw the tweets, it was very brief. He doesn't seem to have, a lot of knowledge, too, on the situation. It just it seems like it was something that was personal. He didn't really want to elaborate on that, so I think we let that just be. There was a follow-up question. Again, he kind of said, this is something that did surprise me a little, but this is what happens sometimes in the league. And you said that earlier, Ramon. Yeah. So nothing surprising there. He also addressed that Quandre Diggs, who is new on this team that will wear the number 26, will absolutely play that safety position, and that he is going to be on a management plan. So we will see him out here, but he definitely is going to be on a pitch count.
Okay.
So just for anybody freaking out because we don't see him in every situation, that's their plan for them or him right now as he kind of gets back into shape.
He's got to ease into it.
Yeah.
Might not even play this weekend.
Exactly. And Garrett Wallow, he is actually out for the season. You guys saw that with the torn pec. I just think we talked about Dylan Radunz with him, and we're not out here for every practice. Not every practice is open to the media. And I found it interesting, and I did send Reed some audio when kind of talking about Dylan Radunz if we want to run that. But he initially just said, hey, he has been rotating with the ones more than you think when it comes to that right guard spot. So he has been getting looks with the ones in some of those situations. And so he had said up to this point, while the depth chart unofficially said that Saahdiq Charles was that number one guy, there was no determination up to this point. So
we just got done talking about that too.
Yeah, so that's kind of more so what he was elaborating on, that the job was not solidified. So now it is up to him to kind of make sure that he wins that job.
What
That's
an
all
opportunity.
up to Radunz.
Mentions as well Jamal Adams dealing with soreness.
Yes.
So that is why he has been out a little bit.
Yeah, soreness.
Yeah, breaking.
Happens,
Every
right?
single player in front of us is dealing with soreness.
Exactly.
I could go ahead and break that news to you. Any athlete that's competed beyond the high school level deals with soreness every single day when they come out to practice.
Yeah.
So that's just a funny way to describe it.
It is. And I guess the game plan before you go, Kayla, is get him to week 1.
Seriously,
that's the game plan for some guys like this.
And he hadn't played a lot either up to this point.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to clarify, and I asked Brian Callahan about this, is the Chig and Josh Wiley competition, because he has already made it clear the running back position, the 1A, 1B type of scenario, right? It's no starter who's going to get that job necessarily. That's kind of the same thing he said with Chig and Wiley. He said they're two different tight ends.
Y and F.
Exactly.
Yeah.
F being Chig and Wiley being Y. And he said they kind of are different players who can add some different things in this offense specifically. Almost always had a good thing to say about Thomas Odukoya as well. Said he has been really impressed. He had no clue what he could offer when he came in with being exempt. He has an exemption, I believe.
International exemption, yeah. So he is basically an extra player on the roster that's just available to you to keep on the practice squad.
Right, but in terms of the Josh Wiley Chig competition that we talk about a lot, it looks like they'll play certain roles that are kind of for them, not necessarily a starter being in that spot.
So, Ramon, for those of us whose football knowledge extends to EA College Football 25 and designing plays, tell us uneducated football people what the difference between a Y and an F would be at the tight end position.
I'm guessing one is a pass catcher, one is more of a blocker. One you get down the field, and one is closer to the line of scrimmage is the way I see it.
And interesting, that's the way that Tyke Tolbert, Titans wide receiver coach, also described Jaquan Jackson when the Titans assistant coaches met with the media early last week. He described Jaquan Jackson as an F.
Yeah.
And that kind of is that deep threat. Again, I used this example from 5 years ago, kind of like the Khalif Raymond.
Yeah.
Sure.
Within this offense of a slot guy that is going to run the deeper routes, who is going to be more of a target down the field, specifically in play action. So to me, they really do have two different jobs for Josh Wiley and Chikakonko. I think the interesting caveat to that is you will see less 12 personnel on this scheme versus the old one.
Yes.
So there's going to be less opportunities for Josh Wiley and Chikakonko to be out there together.
Yep.
But what I take away from what Brian Callahan said effectively is that Josh Wiley's a tight end and Chikakonko is more like a wide receiver.
Yep. And it's going to be unique in how they employ both of them because they both have similar skill sets. I look at Chig as more of a close to the line of scrimmage type of guy that will block you, that can be a lead back if you needed to, catch him in the flats.
Out in space,
Sure.
yeah.
Put him out in space, man. And Wiley, to me, can stretch the field with his height and size. And what we've seen as him before, he got knocked out in the game, I feel like, last year with a concussion. You know, it's been that for him. His issues has been, as far as displaying his talent, keeping him on the field.
Yeah, we can use a little of that audio if you want on Dylan Radunz. Reed has that ready, or we don't have to.
Bert just told me not to play it.
Okay, no.
So I'll find out
We're
why.
good to go on that.
Okay. We will wait. I think some of that may be embargoed for the time being.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So
gotcha.
we will figure out exactly what we can do with that as soon as we can.
This is what happens when you got new staff and new rules.
Who,
Right?
who should be the happiest guy out here today, y'all? I'm going to say
Dylan
Radunz.
Radunz, right?
Just on the – I mean, there's nothing in his way. Like,
Sure.
I'll say this. Like, it's grimy playing in a professional league.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I am trying to beat you out for a job to have you be unemployed.
Right.
The guy somewhat pulled out himself.
I think the guy I'm probably most excited is whoever makes the roster now because there's one less lineman here.
Well, the guy
Dylan
behind them.
Dylan Radunz was going to make the roster either way, but is Cole Spencer or Brian Dooley the happiest guy out here today? Because now they've got a much better shot at making this roster.
Or Corey Levin,
Or Corey
who
Levin.
was signed late.
I think it's interesting too. Like, do you protect the roster by saying, all right, do we need that 7th, 8th offensive lineman? Or is there what's the conversion rate of wide receiver to O lineman? Is what I'm saying. Like literally, at what point is it worth keeping an extra option in the slot because you've got essentially right now Mason Kinsey, Kyrus Jackson, Jaquan Jackson, and Kyle Phillips fighting for maybe 2 spots.
Yeah.
So out of those 4 guys, there are 2 open spots. So now you've got 1 less offensive lineman. That doesn't necessarily have to now be an extra offensive lineman that makes this team. Maybe now there is someone else at a different position that's got a better shot of making the roster.
But see, with the expansion of the practice squad also, now you have the ability to put extra offensive linemen on there who haven't been talked about.
That's what I was going to ask.
To where you can somewhat hide
There's
them.
some bitterness in your voice there about offensive linemen not
I
being
like
talked
that.
about.
Oh, no, but that's
a little bit.
strategic. No, that one was more me analyzing how strategic staffs can be. The same way we thought, of course, Saahdiq Charles had the lion's share of reps. It was told by us it was even, so teams play these types of games like that. And I've seen teams hide guys before on practice squad.
I just wanted to ask you, we can do it when we get back from break, or we don't have to do it all. I did think he had something interesting to say about quarterback Will Levis and timing and getting that down, and I can kind of bring you that when we come back.
Let's do that after the break. Live from Titans training camp as practice gets started here on RKW.
If you're often feeling tired, lacking motivation, drive, gaining weight, or noticing a lack of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked, and it's just a simple test. And with their on-site lab, you'll get results back in about 25 minutes. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office. Their physicians specialize in treating low testosterone with customized treatment, or TRT, for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results, and most health insurance is accepted for this treatment. For established patients with stable T levels, they also offer a convenient physician-monitored self-inject treatment plan that ships directly to your home each month without the need to come in for weekly visits. And at Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Finishing up hour number 3, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW, live from Titans training camp. We'll tell you who is not here coming up in 15 minutes. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Kayla, you wanted to discuss the backup quarterback battle and what Brian Callahan said about it this morning.
Yeah, actually, and I was going to talk about Will Levis's timing too.
Okay.
But when it comes to the backup quarterback situation, yeah, I mean, this is going to be continued to be a competition, obviously, that's going to play out through the preseason. And again, we're only privy to see so much camp. So there are days that they're out here and they're practicing that we don't see. So, what happens in those situations where the coaches are evaluating these positions, that's not what we're necessarily seeing on those days. So this is something where I would say, while I think Mason Rudolph, in terms of his vet presence and kind of he's done it before in games and had success as of late, especially too over in Pittsburgh, seems to have a little bit of an upper hand. But I would say this is a competition they'll let kind of go down to the wire. Yeah. But I could see them keeping Malik on the roster. I honestly think at this point, with the strides he's made, it might be beneficial to do that.
I think he has a case for it.
I'll be honest. I don't think there's any backup quarterback battle.
Yeah. And you might be right.
I
right?
think that's Brian Callahan
can tell us that.
Wanting to continue to get the best out of his two quarterbacks. I don't think there is any way that is a real battle. I think the battle is Malik Willis making this roster as the third quarterback versus somebody else on this team, offense or defense, because as much as we talk about Malik Willis's progress, Mason Rudolph has made very little mistakes through practice as well.
And somebody, I don't know who was talking about that the other day when asked about that, but he pretty much said, yeah, I mean, Mason hasn't done anything to lose the job.
No.
He can't really do anything in that situation, right? I guess it's a good problem to have, is all you could say about that.
And my thing is this. What Malik does in the stadiums is going to have a bearing on what his career is more than
100%.
anything, because if they only keep 2, then if he doesn't do well, then you keep him on practice squad.
Sure.
If he does do well, then other teams can at least see if the Titans are either going to cut him or trade for him type of
There's
situations.
value at that point.
There's value at that point. So Saturday moving forward is his biggest test.
Yeah.
And I think, too, the issue with Malik Willis has never been 7-on-7. I mean, even going back to his rookie season, Malik Willis, the 7-on-7 quarterback, it wasn't great, but it wasn't a disaster.
Right.
He's been a disaster at times, running out of the back of the pocket and trying to create trouble that doesn't need to be there, so to speak. And when the live bullets start flying and you've got full contact versus a guy coming up and touching you when they can sack you, that to me is the next step Malik Willis is going to have to take. Because until he shows me that he is better in that environment, this is all a nice story, but it's not anything tangible yet.
It's fair.
It's the exact same thing that you said about Will Levis and his deep throws.
100%.
Is this to me is he has to also start to understand taking a sack ain't bad.
Yep.
As long as we tuck the ball and protect it, I'd much rather you take a sack, take the loss of down, give us an opportunity for the next down than to try to create, as you said, run into a problem and throwing the ball in the air and having it picked off. Like, those are the steps that he has to make inside the stadium.
So speaking of those deep balls and speaking of timing, that was a question Teron Davenport, our good friend, ESPN insider for the Titans, asked Brian Callahan today. And he first talked about just getting that timing down with different types of receivers, ones that are new this year. And honestly, he simply said work. They've got to put in the work not only on the field, but there's extra time off the field that you're having to put in to find that timing. Specifically, guys, with a guy like Calvin Ridley, where he was point blank. Yeah, he was point blank asked about the timing, and Brian Callahan said it's not been good. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. He's
transparent.
Right, it's not been good. And he said one thing though we're trying to work out and is watching some of those go balls in other types of film from other former wide receivers and their quarterbacks. And he brought up some old ones, even Demaryius Thomas when he was with the Broncos. And he said that's kind of helping to visualize it too with those go balls, because those are things that are obviously going to benefit them if they can get that timing down with a guy like Calvin. So.
Practice getting started. We'll give you a list of who is here and who is not coming up in just a few minutes. I have a hot take. It's a music take.
Ooh.
From something that we already heard earlier this morning. I've had the idea of doing the RKW draft of things that are overrated and this guy might be number one on that list for me. I'm going to make some enemies with this.
Okay.
I can't stand Zach Bryan. Zach Bryan music is not for me.
Okay.
I probably fit into the demographic of being a Caucasian male from Williamson County as to someone who would love Zach Bryan. Can't do it. I don't get it. I feel like Peter Griffin going, I did not like The Godfather.
Right?
It insists upon itself, Lois. It insists upon itself. Zach Bryan insists upon himself. I don't like it. It's all the same sad banjo. My baby left me. I'm so sad. Like, here's a famous celebrity to sing my music, and I'm not going to sing it for you, even though you paid $500 for this ticket. I'm not going to sing my music. This random guy.
Did they play it as an intro today?
They did.
When I
They
was
played
gone?
Zach
Okay.
Bryan. It's
There
put
it
me in a
is.
little bit of a cloudy mood.
I'm not going to argue with you because I'm not
little bit
into
of a
that
cloudy mood.
specific genre. But
Sometimes I have to remind people that although you can judge this book by its cover most of the time, I will surprise you every now and then.
Right?
I don't like Zach Bryan. I really don't.
I won't argue. I don't know if we're alone.
And I love country music. Don't like Zach Bryan.
Ramon,
I don't have
you Zach
enough
Bryan
of his
fan?
Rolodex. I
Yeah.
don't have enough of
No,
his
you wouldn't like
Rolodex
I don't either.
to know. I do have a song in my
Zach Bryan
iTunes.
one?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Probably
sure I
something
do.
in the orange
Let
because
me
it reminds you of
see.
Tennessee.
Of Tennessee.
Let me see.
That's fair.
Give me a break.
Hey Driver is what
It
I have.
insists upon
Hey
itself,
Driver.
Lois.
Hey Driver
Okay.
is a song I
Is he
have.
talking about
in
his
my
golf
song.
club?
I ain't got a clue why I have this, but now I want to go hear how much Will hates it.
Yeah.
615-737-1045 is our number. Who is absent today at Tennessee Titans training camp? And what is the most interesting position battle as we move into preseason football? That and more is next.
Everywhere I go, I see Ford Broncos all over the road, and they're all different. Soft tops, hard tops, the Big Bend heritage style with the white tops. They have the Black Diamonds Raptors for you fast folks out there, or even the smaller Bronco Sports. There are so many options, color combinations, and so many different packages and trim levels with the Ford Bronco. That's why the Two Rivers Ford team invites you to get to know the Ford Bronco. This is an open invite. You don't have to be in the market for a vehicle. The Two Rivers Ford team has a team of Bronco experts on hand to introduce you to the Ford Bronco, answer your questions, let you test drive, show you the on-road and off-road capabilities, the technology, and the accessories that can go on the vehicle too. And remember this, Two Rivers Ford team, they don't work on commission. They're there to educate you, help you answer your questions, and introduce you to the really cool vehicle that you might not know a lot about. That's one of the reasons why I love doing business with Two Rivers Ford and why they're the South's most trusted Ford dealer. So go see my friends at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. They're just 7 miles east of the airport. Get to know the Ford Bronco. Two Rivers Ford is your Ford Bronco headquarters.
What's going on? 9 o'clock. Good morning. Back at Titans training camp at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. I am Robert Walsh. Surprise announcement from the Titans yesterday as they placed Saahdiq Charles on the team's reserve retired list at the age of 25. Brian Callahan spoke to a private media availability this morning, claiming that nothing happened. He just had no interest in playing football. Brian Callahan also updated some injuries for the Titans. Linebacker Garrett Wallow tore his pectoral muscle and will be placed on injured reserve. Jamal Adams dealing with soreness, and Titans are being very precautionary with him. An update on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. Steelers and 49ers re-engaged in trade talks, but the Patriots are out, falling out of favor with Aiyuk due to not having any interest playing in New England, despite having a contract and compensation in place with the 49ers. And in free agency news, former Dolphin and Cowboys center Connor Williams reached an agreement on a one-year deal worth up to $6 million with $3 million guaranteed with the Seattle Seahawks. Williams recovering from a torn ACL, but his agent adds he's making great progress. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Fourth and final hour of the show that gets better in the fourth quarter. It is Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, Tennessee Titans Training Camp 2024. We are here today. We are here tomorrow. Here a little bit next week. And then, boys and girls, that's it.
I know.
For our availability here at camp. So soak it in while you got it.
Yay.
615-737-1045. We can take your burning Titans questions as they take the practice field. Anything you got, we will do our best in the F&M Bank chat on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch under 104.5 The Zone, as well as on the phone lines. Not seen this morning during the stretch period. Again, that is not gospel, considering guys can still come back out after the stretch period. However, ESPN's Teron Davenport writing on Twitter, DeAndre Hopkins, Chidobe Awuzie, Jamal Adams, L'Jarius Sneed, Quandre Diggs, although he is out there now, Anthony Kendall, Garrett Wallow, Trayshawn Harrison, those who are not present, or at least not cited at the beginning of training camp practice. Again, that can change. A little bit of good news. Caleb Farley is back today.
Love that.
Yeah,
he had
really
missed
good.
practice on Saturday after going early into the locker room on Saturday. So had missed practice Sunday.
Yep.
Brian Callahan said he was nursing a hamstring injury. So good to see him back out there at least for the very beginning of practice today. And again, still plenty of time for guys to leave or guys to come back out onto the field.
I wonder too, Ramon, when you're gearing up for that first preseason game of the season, and you have some of these guys that are on maintenance plans, is it something where maybe we're seeing a little bit pullback so that these guys can play? I know it varies from coach to coach when it comes to this kind of stuff, but it is interesting to see how this will play out.
Maintenance for who? Guys that are currently practicing or guys being held out?
There's
like Chidobe?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to see him.
He's got the calf injury.
Right?
I think it's a different
but guys like Jamal Adams, right, that we heard with a little bit of soreness, and guys like Quandre Diggs, who is new, and some of these veteran guys who he says starters are going to play, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case with some of these guys that are on maintenance plans.
Some starters will play, okay?
Yeah.
I think you'll have, if we're talking about starters playing, 85% of the starters usually is what you somewhat consider a full team in the preseason. Some of these guys, man, again, coaches understand how to get their team ready and prepared. They understand what players can and can't do. Like, I was a practice every day type of guy, and I loved it. You know what I'm saying? Some dudes get to that point to where, give me 2 days and I'm good to go. I think Jamal Adams, with his style of play and what you're going to be asking him to do in training camp, from what we've seen, especially since the Quandre Diggs signing, is probably going to be close to the line of scrimmage. What you don't want to do is overwork a guy his size with the physicality he's going to have to come with. I don't think anybody questions, right, what Jamal Adams is capable of doing with what he's done over his career. The issue for him has been in the last couple of years keeping him on the field.
Exactly.
That's where it becomes problematic for you if you don't play him, see if he can hold up, and then you got to scramble and find his replacement. And I honestly don't know who or what his replacement is for this defense.
Yeah.
I don't know how much tapering you would do either, just considering like they've had Saturday, Sunday practices as well. Like I think a lot of these starters are going to get less work this Saturday than they would in a normal Saturday practice, right?
Yeah.
And just the way that works. And I think a lot of the backups, I imagine the mentality is just, hey, it's 110% every day right now just to make the team. I know that's not specifically what you're asking about, but that is an interesting dynamic, and it's a good question just considering the way this routine changes a little bit. I would imagine that this is one of the weeks in camp that you just feel like you're kind of mired in the middle of it with no light at the end of the tunnel, but you're also you don't have the excitement and the energy and the freshness of it just starting. You're smack dab in the middle of training camp, and there's really no end in sight.
At this point, you've developed a little bit of a callus. Your feet understand what it's about to go through every single day. Also, we got our world famous spotter over here too. I was asking Ron Slay. What has he seen?
6'8"? He can see over these entire crowd of people.
He don't need a chair like me.
He didn't even look. He just pointed right at Will Bowling. It's like, you're right. But what he has said, though, is this, and I just saw him complete a pass. Will Levis and Calvin really working on this deep shot. I saw Will Levis complete a pass, looked like he grabbed his sword and put it back in his into his holster.
That's
Swords don't have a holster.
Titans legend Ron Slay watching practice here this morning. Jim Wyatt, I wonder when at the end of practice in his camp observations, he'll probably write, former Titan Brad Hopkins was at practice today. Former Titan Wesley Woodyard was at practice today. Former Titan Ron Slay was at practice today.
Tight end. Right there, baby.
Sometimes don't even deny it. If they believe it, just let them roll with it, man.
And he always says he had a couple routes.
Exactly.
Maurice Fitzgerald would certainly confirm that you got that fade route down.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
What's fascinating is this, okay? This man has transitioned from an All-American basketball player at Tennessee, okay, to also an honorary football player at the University of Tennessee,
That's
too.
Right.
He calls the guys not even by their names, their nickname. Who is Alizé? Al Wilson.
I was going to say that's Al Wilson.
That's Al Wilson. Like, he's got this type of rapport with those guys where nicknames and Big Slay and Big Dog is all a part of the football team in that era, okay? And if you went on campus, you'd be surprised to find out he actually played basketball.
And he's good at that. He's very good at that.
No
Did
doubt.
you guys talk about Arden Key in that discussion?
We did.
Okay, good.
Sure
I just
did.
wanted to make sure that
Did
was
you wanna
cleared
add
up,
to
too.
it?
If you missed it, Brian Callahan saying there has not been official word given from the league. And his words were that is a pending suspension for Arden Key, and says if and when we need to take him out of the ones because of suspension, we will cross that bridge. But that bridge has not yet been crossed.
I like kind of seeing how different this staff does it, compared to just what we've covered in the past. And again, every staff has its different ways, but I'm glad we got that answer because we were kind of speculating what might happen. Is it just the first couple weeks he gets those reps? Now he's saying he's going to get those ones reps until they get a thing from the league, and it hasn't happened.
I think it was Arden Key getting out in front of it.
Yeah.
Not to be blindsided and let somebody else falsely report on him, and just somewhat, to be honest with you, control the narrative. Of
which is smart.
That's what we saw Danico do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with telling your story at times, and especially with the honesty that you have to have with this new staff.
Up in Indianapolis, ESPN Colts writer Stephen Holder says on Twitter, and I quote, Colts receiver Josh Downs, who's had a great camp, was just tackled to the ground and came up with an apparent ankle injury. Had to be helped off the field and did not put weight on the lower leg. Not great.
Tough.
He adds. Says the reality is it should have never happened. It was a 7-on-7 period. It's hard to have full contact in a 7-on-7 period. And safety Nick Cross took Downs all the way to the ground.
Nah, see? When I'm out here chirping and yelling at defenders, when I'm out here telling y'all, you ain't got to do that. When I'm saying to y'all, that's too much, y'all look at me like I'm a defensive hater, and I am.
But you're also right.
I respect it.
You're a correct defensive
But that's
hater.
what I mean in these productive settings is you have to have your guys be available. If Downs is out, down and out. If he's out, that hurts their offense.
Yeah.
There should be no reason you should be taking your players who are potential starters to the ground, no matter what type of play you're trying to make. It's just not smart.
Yep.
And we see the results of it right now for Indy. And I know there's no Titans fan that's sympathetic to what they just went through. So that's just me giving you why I am the way I am in these practice settings.
And it seems like every team has that one camp injury that probably could have been avoided. And this was not a non-contact thing.
And it was reported it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
According to Stephen Holder of ESPN up at Colts camp. Still monitoring the Brandon Aiyuk trade situation. The other headline around the NFL this morning, the New England Patriots, as of late last night, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, are out of the running for Aiyuk's services, leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, who have already added Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos, who cost them a pretty penny, both in draft capital and as well, not a ton of draft capital, but as well contract-wise. I just feel like Pittsburgh is the far better option and the far better fit. Not because Cleveland is not as good of a team. It's not even that, as much as it is you are going to be the dude the second you walk into that Pittsburgh Steelers locker room. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case as obviously and as prominently as it is in Cleveland, although you can make the argument Cleveland's got the better quarterback situation.
So you talk about Pickett all the time. You know, he's the guy now. But
No, he's not.
He's in Philly.
Or sorry,
Justin
Pickett.
Fields and
what am I trying to say?
George Pickens.
George Pickens. That's what I was trying to say. George Pickens. You talk about him, being the guy they have right now, who at least you know what you're going to get out of him. If Brandon Aiyuk comes there, obviously the money will say this, but is he automatically the one?
I think it goes down to that.
Yeah.
Yes, the same sentiments I've had about Calvin Ridley and D-Hop.
Yep.
When you do these types of moves, yes. Now, they have to go and take that the same way I feel about Calvin has to go take it, which is why having DeAndre Hopkins out of this practice is so good for Will Levis. It's so good for Calvin Ridley because of those reasons. Yes, there is a commitment to the guy that you pay this amount of money to. Now, here's the other side of it, too. You can have a 1A and 1B and be totally fine. If you look at all the good teams, they have two really good wide receivers. That's the reason we're so ecstatic about watching what Calvin Ridley and D-Hop can turn into also.
Yeah.
I think there are very few wide receivers that would be a one in front of Brandon Aiyuk in the NFL.
You're right. They need it. And that's
maybe
the thing,
five,
too.
Maybe 5 or 6 wide receivers in the league who would start, as the one over Aiyuk.
I don't trust Pittsburgh just having George Pickens.
No.
I wouldn't either.
615-737-1045. We'll give you some observations. Titans practice is underway. We'll tell you what we're seeing coming up next.
Hey, it's Kayla and Ramon with our friends at Window Nation. This is the time of year, especially now that we've reached August, where you're feeling a little muggy. Maybe it's hot in the house. Your AC is going right out the window, literally out the window. That's because you probably don't have windows that hold that in, and we can help you out because our friends at Window Nation do it all, and they do it right. And right now, the theme for this month, buy 2 windows, get 2 free, plus pay nothing, no interest for 2 full years. And, Ramon, an additional $250 credit.
No doubt about it, Kayla. Here's the thing, too, about Window Nation. All they do are windows, man. They've installed over 200,000 windows last year, probably 40 times more than the average window company. Over 20,000 online positive reviews. And here's the cool thing. Over 1,500 custom vinyl window options. Kayla just told you, buy 2, get 2 free. Plus, no down payment, no interest, and no payments for 24 months. And tack on the fact that you get a $250 credit. Simply call them at 866-90-NATION or go online to windownation.com.
Reed Smith is a great producer, but he's pushing my buttons right now. Here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Reed, the biggest opponent of my anti-Zach Bryan take earlier in the show. I don't like it.
Talking about.
I just don't like it. Practice getting started. Red zone one-on-ones were happening just a moment ago, a period where on most of the throws, the quarterback was throwing from the opposite hash mark to where he was targeting a wide receiver in the low red zone. So quarterback standing on about the 5-yard line, throwing either into the back of the end zone or into really at the pylon in the corner of the end zone. A couple of interesting notes on that. Calvin Ridley had a near catch, but incomplete pass defended well by Trey Avery. Nick Westbrook-Akine dropped the ball in the back of the end zone, defended by Caleb Farley, who had good coverage. Chika Okonkwo had a catch, but maybe the catch of the period was for Josh Wiley. Back shoulder to his left in the back pylon, a one-handed catch as he kind of landed on his left shoulder was impressive. So, again, that is where Wiley is going to have to make his money in this offense, is in the low red zone.
Also, we've talked a lot about Jarvis Brownlee, the rookie cornerback out of Louisville. He had a great breakup on Traylon Burks, who got very frustrated in the moment. So you could verbally hear Traylon Burks on the frustration with not catching that.
And on the D-line and O-line side of things, too, you're seeing what I would call stacking of, Calvin, he brought that in. Yes.
Yeah,
all right.
did.
One of our big questions of practice today, and Brian Callahan said it. That's a catch.
Is it?
Brian Callahan said it before practice. The chemistry between Will Levis and Calvin Ridley on deep passes has been not good. And right there, you saw Ridley winning his matchup outside against man coverage at the sideline, gets the toes down, and makes a nice diving catch. Perfectly thrown ball right there by Will Levis. Offense is marching down the field.
And like you said, down the sideline, which is a good one, like to keep it in too. So.
Couple of notes. Devondre Sweat just came off. I feel like, what was that, 6 plays in a row? No, I'm talking about from the start of it. He's been in.
I thought it was like 3 or 4.
No, it's like about 5-6 plays that he's just now coming out. So that's encouraging. And also the O-line, D-line are working on passing off pass sets, and the defense is running games on them as far as their pass rush goes.
So here is Levis throwing again over the middle.
Broke that up.
Interception.
Interception.
I want to see if there's a flag there, if the coverage got there early or on time. So that was close. That was a bang-bang play. It was over the middle, intended for Nick Westbrook-Akine. I would not put that interception solely on Levis.
Nah.
Yeah. Yep. He was hit as it hit his fingertips.
Who was that who got that?
It went off Nick Westbrook-Akine and was intercepted. Your guess is as good as mine.
I couldn't see that. It was a safety plus. It looked like either linebacker or corner.
Yeah,
right
I
there.
saw Jack get excited, but I don't know if it was Jack.
Jack always gets excited.
I know.
Still a good series for the offense, and that's a ball Nick Westbrook-Akine has got to catch.
Yep.
Yes,
and he's been that solid piece for this offense for a while in terms of at least consistency with catching those types of balls. So, yeah, you're exactly right, especially in this type of situation with the wide receiver depth.
So here comes Mason Rudolph. Going to get a little bit of work in here. I see Dylan Radunz in this huddle.
Yes, probably as many reps as you can get a guy, man. That's somewhat being thrust into. You got to think he's got to get his game speed up to par as far as playing this many reps at the start of the season. Something he hasn't done much at all. So good to see him getting a lot of reps.
Was Radunz just in there in the last?
Yes, he was
drive
also.
as well. Interesting. All right, so that's double Dylan Radunz, and NWI, who is also staying out there at the moment as well.
To whom much is given, Will, much is expected, all right? Yeah. One way to evaluate a guy is to see what he's going to look like in bad situations. Again, coaches are very strategic with these types of things, putting you in scenarios that you say, why am I? Why me? Well, if a coach is putting you in situations where you can have a challenge, it's probably because they want to see you come out of it and encouraged by you being that type of guy to be able to handle it.
Open for questions in the F&M Bank chat on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. That is where we invite you to go. You can just join the comment section there, and whatever you would like to see or anyone you want to know about, we will do our best to get you an update on what we see from them. Guys, what is the most interesting position battle as of today, August 7th, the week of the first preseason game? The position battle you are watching most closely on Saturday is what?
I mean, I think we've kind of hammered the nail down pretty hard with the right guard, but honestly, I do think that that's a spot that we're going to still see some rotation there. And Brian Callahan mentioned it earlier in our scrum today that it's not like Brunskill won't see any reps there. He has had some reps there, so I think you continue to just watch that battle, even though we're assuming it will be Dylan Radunz at this point. You got to watch that.
Yeah, you do. And, again, mine definitely for sure the right guard position. But earlier I said also the outside edge, Shane Ray, Rashad Weaver, these guys that continually get brought up as far as what they're going to be capable of doing, because we know as it stands, it's been reported, there will be an absence of Arden Key at some point. And seeing those guys step up, man, who's going to be the one to shake out of this? Again, you look at where Shane Ray was. He's a former first-rounder. There is some talent there. I don't know what he looks like life since the NFL, but it would be fascinating to see what he looks like inside the stadium this upcoming Saturday.
I think it's interesting at edge rusher specifically. Doesn't it feel like there are a lot of guys in – here comes a ball right at Burt. Ramon Foster making a catch.
There you go.
Light work right there.
Catch by number 73 from the University of Tennessee.
Hey, over here nervous
Ramon
and stuff.
Foster.
Yeah.
I should have spiked it.
Mason Rudolph thought you were open.
Mason, I'm always open, man. Like, golly.
I know. He was mixed
Jamar
up. He was at Steelers practice.
At 7-11, Ramon Foster, he's always open.
Hey, smart throw. See, Derek Mason saw that. Soft hands. Athlete.
That's a guy who was actually paid to catch footballs.
I know he was paid to do it, but he appreciated us,
Just move people and we're good.
I mean, he appreciated us.
I do think it's interesting every time we get into preseason, there's always an edge rusher who I don't pay attention to who flashes in preseason games. And I think that's just because you can't actually get a guy to the ground, obviously, in practice settings as well. But, I mean, it was David Aneni 2 years ago. It's been Rashad Weaver at times. Like, there are always guys up front. Last year it was Caleb Murphy, the guy at Ferris State.
It was, yes.
Who, when you get in that first preseason game, you learn something about tackling, about in open space. Not only are you getting to the quarterback, can you get the quarterback to the ground? Right. So I think on Saturday, Jalen Harrell is the guy I'm really intrigued to watch, and someone who I think needs to be a contributor in this defense, because I think edge rusher right behind offensive line is the second biggest problem point for me on this entire roster.
What a dart right there by Mason Rudolph, man.
Mason catch by Kinsey.
And I was going to say, Rand actually said that, and maybe he gave us like a prequel to what we were, didn't even know at that point, but he had mentioned some of these outside linebackers that he was impressed with or that will get opportunities, and he mentioned some of those names, especially Caleb Murphy, who we did see last year. So they're giving the chance for these depth pieces to step up, just like, the offensive line is for them to step up for these roles. So it's going to be really important, Will. I agree with you, for these preseason games for them to stick out.
Right now, also, with the twos, a guy that's worked primarily on the left side, Andrew Rupchick, is working on the right side of things with Jalen Duncan. So it's something, again, I think he's had a solid showing in camp so far. Given an opportunity, because a space has opened up, is something that I think is super unique in how Coach Bill Callahan is going to match these guys going forward. Again, you got to be transitional on how you work as a pro. And when you're not a named starter, you better have position flexibility at the offensive line position.
True.
Question on Facebook Live, Justin writes in, says, do you think the Titans will go to free agency to get another guard?
I don't see a need to right now. Again, here's the thing about getting guys not on rosters currently is they haven't been playing football. We got 2 weeks in training camp right now to where these guys have been getting a whole lot of work. And you got to think, Coach Callahan's had most of these guys throughout the course of the offseason. And it'd honestly be somewhat disrespectful to not give these guys a chance unless you just crap the bed that much.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate it. We said it earlier when we were discussing this. Bill Callahan is somebody who kind of takes pride in development, and when things kind of come awry, he makes opportunities, out of it, and he did it in Cleveland, and he's kind of talked about that. So I do see him kind of having an opportunity to give these guys a chance with competing for those backup spots as well.
I think the specific answer to give Justin is that I think every GM has a list of guys that they would be interested in if they become available that are on other rosters. So it's not a matter. It's not a matter of, am I going to go, add somebody who's on the street? I think the more likely possibility is I'm going to say something this is a trigger warning. The more likely possibility is to go do what you did when you got Dennis Daly. And at the end of camp, when there's a guy who's clearly on the chopping block at the end of training camp, you're able to do a 7th-round pick swap or a 6th-round pick swap for someone who's probably not going to make a roster, who a team wants to get some kind of value of. Same thing with Calvin Throckmorton. Like when he became available mid-season last year out of Carolina, that wasn't a trade situation, but that was someone you were able to pick up who was just a roster casualty. So that is more likely at this point than someone that's just sitting out there.
Yeah, it is, man. And understanding the system, understanding what's required of this group, too. I think you go with a more established guy as opposed to having a situation where you just signing guys just to have them available. Like, no, there are plenty of bodies in this O-line group that you can find a starter in, and I think there's a good bit of quality left and Dylan Radunz and other guys around there.
Sorry, we just dropped the 104.5 The Zone TV. I feel mean snapping at anyone like that. It feels weird.
He was zoned in, man. He's zoned into this.
Absolutely.
He is. Bert's a football guy, big football guy.
Oh, yeah.
The video The Zone put out of Bert watching practice, I almost retweeted it and just said, football guy.
I mean, it's simple.
That is the content we want. You don't need to hear from me. You hear from me for way too much, Joey. You don't need to hear from us. You need to hear from Robert Walsh on his takeaways, which is what he's talking about with Coach Mack when Coach Mack joins us every Thursday.
No doubt.
Happy birthday, Coach Mack.
Happy birthday, Coach Mack.
Could see him over there. I don't think he's listening to us.
We'll get it. He heard it. Now the world knows, the world knows it's Coach Mack's birthday.
All right. The Malik Willis-led offense is onto the field as they continue operating. For me, I think answering the question from earlier on the most interesting position battle. For me, it's wide receiver.
Okay.
For me, it's wide receiver, and it's not even close because right now the value that they have put on Mason Kinsey and Kyrus Jackson being return specialists at the top of that depth chart. I think there are two spots between Jaquan Jackson, Mason Kinsey, Kyle Phillips, and Kyrus Jackson. Of those four guys, I think two of them make the roster.
Yeah.
And I think right now, the two that would probably be are Mason Kinsey and Jaquan Jackson.
Got to respect
You're going to take that over Kyle Phillips, huh? Jaquan? You're not guaranteed.
Well, Kyle Phillips can't return. That's the point.
But he's still been working back there, though.
But he's not on the depth chart as the starting returner.
Right. That's Mason Kinsey.
If Mason is their guy as the punt returner, then...
And I'm kind of talking more so Jaquan Jackson of just because he was drafted, does that mean he's their guy? You know what I'm saying? Because Kyle Phillips has been on this team, but that doesn't mean he's their guy either. That he's going to have the upper hand against a Jaquan Jackson type of player.
You know what the NFL stands for to players? Not for long.
Yeah,
Either show me the tricks that you have up your sleeve or we will go find another guy. This is a business, a very transactional business, as John Robinson had conditioned us of turning the bottom of the roster. You got to do something that's going to make you stick. And as it pertains to him right now, there hasn't been a whole lot of things that we can report upon that we are saying that are making him stick over the other two dudes. Mason Kinsey has had two write-ups from this past weekend from Jimmy Wyatt about how eccentric he's been in practice. And it ain't going to be something that makes headlines across NFL. Right. But for a team where you need different types of bodies, what's going on? You need different types of bodies. I know, it was very unprofessional right there.
What's going on?
We've got a lot of people that want to come up and just say hi to Ramon. Honestly, I would too.
Yeah, but we've heard more about what Mason Kinsey's done over these practice days, and that does go into account. What we don't know, Kayla, is what do they look like when we're not here on practice,
and what do they look like in the film room, all of that stuff. But I think Mason has proven to be that guy too. Like he puts in the work, and I think the biggest thing is if he's right now top of the depth chart in punt return, like he's probably got a spot if he wins that spot. I mean, he does have a spot.
This is where pressure comes up, right? Can you hold on to it?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good point.
It's interesting too because
interception.
There is a Malik Willis interception. Who's got a roster?
47. That was 47. Who's that? 47.
Who's got a roster?
I do not have a roster. I know.
That is
roster.
The negatives of us being over here and not being with the rest of the media to pick up a roster.
Hey, that's big time right there. He snatched that one, too. Yeah, he did. That was a beautiful pick.
I believe that is Jojo
Doman. That is correct.
All right, then. Let's go.
Jojo Doman.
I mean, he's standing right here. We could have just asked him, like, hey, 47, what's your name?
What's your name?
Bother the man. I will.
These are the thing. Players who are just battling, trying to make plays. These types of things stick out. Whether or not they make the roster, that's another thing. But, practice squad, these types of things help.
Absolutely.
Let's go to Brandon in Lebanon on the phone line, 615-737-1045. What's up, Brandon?
What's up, Zoo Crew?
What's
going
on?
Hey, so I got a question about Jack Gibbons.
Okay.
I haven't really heard too much about him for camp or whatever. I love him on playing Madden. He's like one of my go-to guys, and he's got a lot of upside. Have y'all heard too much about him this camp?
Yeah.
Yes,
he's
we
been
have.
he's
Thank you,
been
Brandon.
solid, Brandon. Like everything I've heard in press conferences and speaking to his position coaches is he is really doing exactly what he needs to do. And the biggest thing about Jack Gibbons that they rave about is how smart he is, right? Yeah. And you need that on the field, and whether or not he'll wear the green dot to start the year, I don't know. But I've heard a lot about how he is, up to par on everything, and he's doing exactly what they want him to do. And in a way, it kind of compliments Kenneth Murray.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He's made plays. He's been there. He's tipped some footballs in the air for interceptions for other guys. He's Johnny on the spot, man. I'll say this for the folks that question his athletic ability, what he's capable of doing. He is smart enough to understand what his deficiencies are. You can tell he's a guy that does not hide what he's got going on.
So I keep seeing T'Vondre Sweat running.
Yeah.
At the end of every play.
Sure.
I feel like he is not the lazy, big body guy that's just going to stick right there in the middle of the formation, and then if the run goes outside, they just had a pitch to Tajay Spears, and he's running back into the secondary every time.
Yeah.
I just saw a tweet a minute ago. I apologize. I don't know which reporter it was from. I'll double check. But
as far
the tweet said, Daniel Brunskill cannot, in all caps, block T'Vondre Sweat. Justin Mello, our good friend, who says that this morning.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
That is a fair assessment. That
Just
is a very fair assessment.
Pressure off the right side. Harold got home right there. Here's the thing. This is where that group, that right side of his offensive line, have to get on the same page. This is where, if you're going to be a starter in this league, you need to snatch that right now so you can start working with your guy on that side of the ball. And that right there, I'm telling you, teams will sniff that out as soon as the season kick off. We're going to test them and see if they actually are working together on the same page. And that's where Radunz has to get to. That's where him and NPF got to be good at.
Who are out there currently.
Yeah.
Carter on Twitter says, really hard for me to believe that Mason Kinsey is our best option at punt returner.
Well,
I agree. Totally agree. But I think the element of that is he catches the ball.
Exactly.
And that is where, with the ball in his hands, no, he's not the best option on this Titans team. But he's got to actually have the ball in. You got to have the ball in your hands to be able to actually do something with it, and Kyle Phillips puts it on the ground too much. Deep ball from Levis a minute ago to Calvin Ridley on the far sideline. It was short, underthrown a little bit, but you'd rather do that than, again, throw it to where the safety can catch it, because he got a pass interference penalty called against Trey Avery. Ridley did there.
I thought it was an underthrow, like you said, but it was smart on Calvin Ridley.
The Carson Wentz special.
What did he do? Slow down to create contact, and I think he ended up getting a DPI right there on the defense.
Yeah, he did. It's fun to see this timing in real action, though, too, and working on it.
It is. We'll see the development of this right side also of the offensive line. I'm seeing pressure that has to get cleaned up, and it's small technical things you could tell, but the pressure is there. And I'd also say this too. This is one of those things where I'm trusting Coach Bill Callahan to correct. That's why they got so many cameras out here to watch film over.
Yep.
Coming up, we will wrap up the show, tell you what you are missing as practice continues, and we will hear from Inky Johnson. Midweek Motivation is next.
If you're often feeling tired, lacking motivation, drive, gaining weight, or noticing a lack of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked, and it's just a simple test, and with their on-site lab, you'll get results back in about 25 minutes. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office. Their physicians specialize in treating low testosterone with customized treatment, or TRT, for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results, and most health insurance is accepted for this treatment. For established patients with stable T levels, they also offer a convenient physician-monitored self-inject treatment plan that ships directly to your home each month without the need to come in for weekly visits. And at Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. So get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Practice continuing here at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. We wrap up the show on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Immediately on your favorite podcast platform right when the show ends, you can get Rett Bryan from earlier this morning. You can get what Brian Callahan said to the media, and you can also get our initial reaction to the Saahdiq Charles retirement, the big news of the morning. Ramon, explain to me what is happening to our left right now. We have got essentially walk-through kind of vibe going on with the offensive line, and you've got backup linemen who are ultimately working as defensive linemen with pennies on. Explain to me what they're trying to coach right here.
This is one of those development periods right here. What you have right in front of us is the punt return, where they're jamming the gunner on the far side over here. They're trying to figure out guys on the punt team that can break the double team to go down and make tackles right now.
I'm more talking about the one over here to the left.
On the other side.
I know what they're doing over here.
They're going through the shells of the defense. What we saw early in the pre-practice with the O-line and the offensive set was them picking up games, and as far as the stunts up front. Right now, it looks like they're figuring out passing protections, which makes me think the next period we'll see will be a mostly passing drill. What they're working on is picking up blitzes. They got the running backs with them, figuring out the protections, because, again, protections are team. It's not just the O-line that give up sacks. It's making sure the running back know if there's a safety off the edge. If there's somebody in the A-gap, do we squeeze? Yes, ID in the mic. Do we squeeze and pick up the linebacker? Or if we're in the gun, hey, running back, that's your linebacker right there. Yeah. So just delegating roles in pass protection, because it is team protection.
I like it. Practice continuing. We're going to hear from Inky Johnson, a little bit of midweek motivation.
My
coming
guy.
up here in just a moment. He will join us live this morning.
Nice. It's been a while.
The power of Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone. Offense, pretty even with the defense today, you would say. 2 interceptions. I would say one of them on the quarterback, on Malik Willis, and one of them maybe on Nick Westbrook-Akine, not catching a Will Levis ball.
Yes. It's some give and take in this one. We've seen the run game work for the offense, which I'm a little bit more shocked by, too, man. Watching running backs get into the open space, we've seen some play action come from the offense. We've seen the defense get to the backfield. That is one thing that I do, and I've been reiterating, watching this pressure up the middle or on this right side for this offensive line.
Yeah, and just to recap, with the small amount that we've seen with Nicholas Petit-Frere, Ramon, and Dylan Radunz kind of working in at the right side, what have you seen from them early on?
Just different pages right now. I think you see the run game be better than the pass protection with those two, which, again, I always say, the passing protection cohesion comes with times and more rep, which is why they're doing those drills down there right now to be on the same level. I think sometimes we take care of ourselves in passing protection. Oh, I got my guy. And it's truly and honestly dropping back at the same level, picking up your man at the same level, and going from there. It really is a dance, man. I used to joke and say, get in front of them and start dancing. As long as we're on the same level and got the same two-step, we'll be all right in pass protection.
Nice.
A couple more questions in the F&M Bank chat. One question about Jaquan Jackson says, thought he would be our returner. Still could be, but I don't think he will be the kick returner. I think that is going to be essentially now with the new kickoff rules, the fact that this is like another run play. I think Tyjae Spears is your kick returner.
Yeah.
And I think one of those slot receivers between Mason Kinsey or Jaquan Jackson would likely be your punt return.
And Spears did it last year for some time in terms of the kick return.
Correct.
So it's not like he's not new to, or he's not new to it. So I would assume that too at this point.
My pushback is we still have a month.
Yeah, there's a lot of time.
And anything can happen.
Yeah.
So.
I do think, though, the thing about the running back position and putting your starting running back at kick return, if he has a 40-yard run and needs a little bit of oxygen, well, here's Tony Pollard for you.
Yeah.
Like that I think, is where the Titans have an interesting scenario where a lot of other teams cannot afford to put in their feature back, which I think Tyjae Spears will end up being for this offense and for kickoffs. This team can afford to do that.
No doubt. And again, they got options, man, which is all you're asking for. Starting off this drill, they just switched it up on us a little bit. Did you guys notice?
I did not.
They pulled the ones and let the twos go first right here.
Good
as far as who's getting the reps first, man. And again, what we did see is NPF went out. Dylan Radunz stayed in at right guard, and right tackle is Jalen Duncan.
Yep.
Okay, so are they trying to get him the most reps?
As many reps as you possibly can.
As Dylan Radunz, as we're speaking of.
Interesting. I'd say that is the strong indicator that that's your starter.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's the one that they want to train as much as possible and really kind of go through the gauntlet, so to speak.
And the other thing,
that's the guy they want to be their starter.
He's going to see most of the opposing teams in the stadium, probably twos, and he does their starters.
Okay.
So getting adjusted to seeing what that level is like, but also practicing against your ones is something he's got to be ready for. But it's honestly reps and reps and reps and reps.
So the Buck Rising show will be on deck here from Titans training camp. You'll hear more about what Brian Callahan had to say. You will hear practice observations. You will also hear Tavondre Sweat.
Yeah.
Big interview.
On
Big view.
Buck Rising show today. Kirby, make sure there are 2 chairs nearby to fit Tavondre Sweat.
Right.
To come on the radio show. But right now, we have got our guy, our VFL, our main man, Inky Johnson, here to give us a little bit of midweek motivation. Inky, what's up, man?
What's up, Ink?
What's going on, guys? How are you all?
Good to hear from you.
No, it's awesome. I was just watching a clip on Instagram of Ramon at practice teaching Don Davenport how to do O-lineman drills. Impressive, Mon. I have to admit. Impressive, man.
Hey, Ink is like you, man. We got to be complex and well-versed, man. You know
he
how
knows
it
what
goes.
he's talking about. It's crazy.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, man. I'm going to get right to it, guys, man. As you guys know, this year, around this time is always a busy time for me because I'm with a lot of teams and speaking and in airports a lot. And man, the other day I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was trying to get home, and it was bad weather in Dallas, and so my flight ended up getting delayed, and ultimately my flight ended up getting canceled. And so I'm in the airport, and I'm trying to catch the SkyTram. They got a SkyTram in Dallas to where it can take you to a different terminal. I was trying to get on the SkyTram, and I was waiting with different people, and the SkyTram would come, and every time the SkyTram would come and stop, and the doors would open, it would be filled to capacity. I'm talking about people are on the SkyTram literally almost face to face. I'm talking about packed to capacity, like sardines on the SkyTram. And so I would stand there, and I would look at the doors, and it would open, and I would be like, nah, I'm cool on that, man. I'm going to wait on the next one. And so I waited on like 4 SkyTrams to come by. And different people would come and go as the SkyTrams would come and go. And I learned something in that moment of adversity, in that moment of opposition, in that moment of challenge, in that moment of change. Some people, when the doors would open to the SkyTram, they would say, man, you know what? I'm getting on the SkyTram. I don't care if I'm face-to-face with a person. I don't care if I'm side-to-side. I don't care if I'm uncomfortable. I have to get on the SkyTram to make it to this other terminal to catch my flight. Other people is like, it's no way I'm getting on the SkyTram. I'm not being face-to-face with people. I'm not being uncomfortable. I'm just going to walk. And then it was me. My flight had been canceled, so it was no sense of urgency for me. I was just trying to get to my hotel. And in that moment, it made me realize something. Your urgency level will always dictate what you're willing to tolerate. Your urgency level will always dictate what you're willing to tolerate. Your urgency level for greatness, your urgency level for success, your urgency level to do things well will always dictate what you're willing to tolerate, whether it be people, environments, bad habits, your urgency level to change, your urgency level to be great, your urgency level to acquire success will always dictate what you're willing to tolerate. Go be great, man. Thank you for your time. Peace.